In this world, a person's fate is determined by their class, for it is the measure of power. Swordsman, mage, priest, fighter, knight, warrior, or hero all possess might that allows them to influence the course of battles and change the history of nations. But no one even suspected that the strongest class in this world was not a hero or a mage, but at first glance the most worthless and forgotten by everyone. An ordinary peasant. The story begins with a terrible tragedy. A man was hit by a truck and died in a terrible accident in modern Japan. But death was only the beginning for him, as he was reborn in a completely different world. So he received the class of a peasant. His name was Ryuto McLean. Thinking about reincarnation, he felt injustice. Wasn't it mockery? Was he really doomed to remain a simple peasant all his life? Reflecting on this, the boy was chopping wood, and when he finished the hard work, he sighed with satisfaction. If it was destined so, he would simply live like an ordinary peasant when suddenly someone called out to him. Behind stood a girl and another boy. Ryuto immediately recognized his friends, Moise and Cordelia. He asked in surprise why they were here, and the girl smiled and reminded him that they had agreed to eat together. It turned out that he really forgot about the promise. Cordelia grabbed his hand and cheerfully pulled him forward, ordering him to hurry because the sun was already setting beyond the horizon. Her voice sounded so cheerful that arguing was pointless. Ryuto thought that the truly special character who obeyed no rules was this girl born only 3 days after him. Her name was Cordelia Allstone. She squeezed his hand so hard it cracked. Frightened, the girl quickly let go and began to apologize, but Ryuto raised his palm and said it was okay since he had recently hit his hand hard on a tree anyway. After this situation, Cordelia kept her distance from him, and silence hung between them. The atmosphere was broken only by Moses's cough, who tried to lighten the moment and remind them that they still needed to discuss the lecturer's notes from the magical conference. Cordelia suddenly remembered this and wondered if it was about that teacher with the huge hat. Ryuto, however, realized that even in everyday communication he had to make an effort not to reveal his own weakness. At her 15 years, Cordelia already held the hero title under the name Iki Tusan. Heroes in this world are the main weapon of countries, capable of ending wars. And Moise had the Sage class, which allowed him to control weapons from a distance. They were both considered unique combat units of the country, even among the few who reached a high level. That is why Ryuto felt ashamed. As compared to such friends, he remained a simple peasant. But despite the difference in statuses, they still remained true friends. The boy suddenly hugged them tightly, which caused genuine surprise and slight embarrassment in both. They asked confusedly why he did it so suddenly. Ryuto sharply asked how much longer they would talk about things he did not understand at all. They replied that besides school matters, they had nothing else to discuss. Then he turned to Cordelia, asking if she was sure about the safety, since monsters often appeared in these parts. The girl was struck by this fear. Having the title of Dragon Slayer, she was stronger than many, yet he was still afraid. She smiled proudly and asked if he was really so afraid that he even feared leaving the village limits. Ryuto just lowered his eyes and replied that he was a simple peasant and simply had no other choice. Suddenly Cordelia heard quick footsteps deep in the forest. She became alert, while Ryuto was still muttering that it was dangerous to take someone like him into the forest. And at that moment, the monster jumped out in front of them, making the boy scream in terror. Cordelia instantly rushed forward and cut the monster in two. Drops of blood splattered on her face, but she only smiled and jokingly said that tomorrow morning they should prepare fresh pork. But suddenly she realized what had happened and sharply turned away, hastily wiping the hot blood from her face so that her friends would not see her like that. Ryuto felt that he had shown weakness and revealed his emotions too much. His heart tightened with shame. The girl stood with her back to him, yet quietly asked if he understood why she had brought him here. She said that she wanted to show him her true essence, which he would never have seen in the village. Cordelia trembled as she said that from now on she is joining the Night Order and will begin real training. When she turns 16, she will become a special student of the Royal Magical Academy. That is why she wanted him to see her as she truly is, not just as an ordinary girl from their village. She dared to ask something important, but Ryuto interrupted her, unexpectedly asking if that meant that Moses was also watching everything. The girl fell silent, then with a worried look said that she had addressed him specifically. She became embarrassed and blushed, asking why he was so carefree, since soon they would no longer be able to see each other. She directly asked if he really had nothing he wanted to say to her. In response, the boy just remained silent, unable to find words, and this silence oppressed more than any words. Realizing this, Cordelia could no longer say anything, but suddenly someone loudly called Ryuto, begging for help, because in such cold weather it was hard for them to manage without him. Ryuto exclaimed that he was already coming, and turning to Cordelia, asked why she had such a frowning expression on her face. The offended girl only said that she did not know herself, and ordered him to hurry to work. Seeing him off with her gaze, she said that since he is a peasant, whenever any monster appears, he must loudly call her for help, otherwise trouble may happen. The boy only confirmed in his mind that it was already clear. Precisely because he was a simple peasant, he truly had no other choice but to rely on others. Moses apologized for calling him to help, but the boy just smiled and said that this was the work of peasants, not wise men. Moses then stated that they had decided to appoint Ryuto as the head of cooking and laundry. Ryuto muttered that the girl only gives orders but does nothing herself. Moisey laughed and confirmed that this was the absolute truth. Soon they finished the laundry. Moisey apologized again, but the boy replied that everything was fine. Suddenly Ryuto asked if they were not friends of the three. The next moment he dropped the bowl of water into the river and felt a strange tremor. His whole body treacherously weakened, and he collapsed helplessly to the ground. The smile disappeared from Moses's face. He coldly asked again if Ryuto really said friends, and with a sneer added, "So who is friends with whom? The peasant with the sage." His voice darkened, his face became stern, and he said that this was no joke at all. Finally, the poison he had prepared in advance took effect, and now everything would fall into place. Barely conscious, Ryuto asked why Moses acts that way. He emphasized that he, Cordelia, and Ryuto were born in the same year, grew up together, shared childhood and the same upbringing. But fate decided otherwise. After all, the girl had always treated Ryuto well, while Moses himself had the class of a sage, a unique gift that falls to only one among hundreds of thousands. He placed his hand on his chest and said that he too had been reincarnated. Then he harshly stepped on Ryuto's hand and said with contempt that even on the topic of rebirth, a peasant would understand nothing. Pressing down hard with his foot, he added that it was a trifle for him. After all, Moses had received not only the title of sage but also a special status that elevated him above all others. With a bitter smile, he recalled that the greatest miracle for him was the existence of the girl who seemed like a true angel, and for several years he had sincerely wished to belong only to her. Looking at the half-alive Ryuto, he harshly declared that he was no longer worthy to be near her. That was his final answer to the boy's question. He did not understand that before him was a hero of another level. He stepped on him once more and coldly said that Ryuto must know his place. After that, he kicked with all his might and threw the boy straight into the river. At that moment, Cordelia felt a strange jolt in her head and looked around, not understanding where Ryuto had disappeared, who had been standing nearby just a moment ago. In the water, the boy struggled in vain for a breath of air. Waves tossed him, and he sank deeper under the current. Suddenly, an image of Cordelia appeared before his eyes, sincerely smiling at him, and he was ready to say goodbye to life. But suddenly another image of the same girl appeared, who was shouting his name and begging him to answer if he was alive. Her voice sounded through the water. The waves parted, and the boy saw her face. She was shocked by what had happened, and he only weakly smiled in response. The only thing he wanted was to apologize to her. Cordelia rushed to him with eyes full of tears, while he sank deeper into the cold water. Before his eyes, the darkness suddenly changed to a vision. He saw a small stone that Cordelia once split while laughing, holding a sword in her hands, and they laughed together. Childhood memories surfaced before him, where Cordelia was always nearby and beamed with a happy smile. She always radiated joy when spending time with him. Ryuto realized that he saw the light at the end of the tunnel, what people call the flash of life before death. In these memories, everything flashed by in an instant. He tried to reach Cordelia, but she walked quickly and confidently, moving away from him like a shadow. He felt miserable and powerless. Lying on the ground, he mentally begged for only one thing: to have the strength to never be weak again. When he opened his eyes, he saw a dragon before him in horror. The creature said it did not even know whether the boy was lucky or just pathetic. The only thing clear was that the river had brought him right here. Half-conscious, Ryuto whispered that he had a wish for the dragon. The boy said he had heard legends about how those who entered the dragon's lair became incredibly strong. The dragon confirmed that some indeed gained such power. It was a legendary story among heroes. An ordinary person whose fate was tied to a dragon gained a strange power that made them a hero capable of changing the world. Ryuto fervently asked the dragon to take him with him, because he wanted above all to become strong. After a long pause, the dragon sadly replied that he could not fulfill this request. He explained that there are two reasons. The first is a strict restriction. Dragons only accept orphans or slaves who are not yet 12 years old. Ryuto gathered his strength and asked about the second. The dragon replied that the boy was already dead. Half of his body had disappeared, erased without a trace, and he had almost no chance. The giant creature carefully lifted the half-destroyed body of the boy. He was staring blankly into the void, unable to believe that all this was really happening to him. Ryuto asked what would happen if he could fulfill these conditions. The dragon promised. If that happened, he would definitely grant his wish, because he never breaks his word. The boy smiled and asked if he could consider this a dragon's promise. He said that he most desires to obtain the divine protection of the dragon, as well as access to the great library of the Dragon King, where priceless knowledge is hidden. The shocked monster lifted the boy in front of itself and asked where he got such information. But it immediately guessed that it was easier not to ask, but simply to read his thoughts. Suddenly the dragon saw a vision. A little boy was sitting among the bodies of dead people. Then he realized that this meeting with Ryuto was far from the first. It became clear to him that the thoughts of this boy were extremely unusual. The dragon said that if everything went according to Ryuto's plan, from this moment fate would change its course. The boy received a long-awaited promise from the dragon. The next moment, Ryuto found himself in a white space. His body was whole again. Both halves returned to their place. He raised his arms and legs, moved them, and sat up sharply, feeling a new strength. He smiled confidently and said that one way or another he would win this game. Next to him stood a mysterious creature in a mask who also smiled in response. The girl said that Ryuto had already gone through too many trials. The boy agreed, thanked for the abilities he had received, and added that he did not just take them. God himself gave them to him when he returned after death. The girl explained that the true meaning of returning after death was that many people knew about it, but few dared to use it. Ryuto replied that few had the courage to take this step. He added that now there was no ability left capable of granting resurrection, so he asked if he could choose another one. The girl replied no, a maximum of 2, because each can only be taken once. She opened a large screen before him and allowed him to choose 2 abilities, excluding the first, return from death, and the second, wisdom, which he had already received earlier. The boy said that it was a pity, because in the next reincarnation he could have gained even more skills. But even his second risky choice turned out to be successful. His class remained peasant. The girl said that the place and circumstances of birth would repeat. Having considered everything, he chose 2 abilities: exceptional endurance and farming. The girl said that she could still understand endurance, but farming seemed to her pointless. The boy quietly said that the girl loves flowers, and even in her daily sternness he wanted to give her a smile at least because of the beauty of the flowers. She smiled touched and said that she understands him. She gave him chosen abilities and wished him a happy journey and success on this new path. Before Ryuto a bright light flashed, and in a moment he was transported. As last time, he would soon be reborn in an old half-ruined hut. Although he was just a peasant without wealth and power, now he had a promise and could go the path to victory. As a peasant, he would manage to prepare everything necessary to become strong. A huge family celebrated the 2nd birthday of little Ryuto. The dwelling was filled with joy. People greeted him, laughed, and enjoyed the celebration. People sincerely greeted the McClellan family. The boy's father thanked everyone for coming and, clapping his hands, drew attention to the other parents, announcing that another hero had appeared in the world. It was little Lady Cordelia, whose birthday was to be in 3 days. Everyone admired her beauty, compared her to an angel, and even said that in the future she would become someone's bride. But suddenly another child cried out loudly. Cordelia's mother said that their baby was hungry too. She took the boy in her arms and said she had to feed him. She addressed McClellan and asked for permission to use the room for her wife. The man agreed, saying that his wife was already there. The girl entered the room and saw Ryuto's mother, who was breastfeeding him. She was a little surprised that she was doing it again, but the boy's mother looked completely calm and saw no problem in it. The girl noticed that Ryuto was looking at her intently. She thought that maybe he also wanted her to feed him, and McLean's mother said that it was not true. She gently stroked the boy's head and assured him that he did not desire this. She hugged him and proudly said that he was happy next to her. She felt that her son loved his mother, and this was the most precious motherly love. She lifted him in her arms and asked the girl if she wanted to hold the baby. She noticed that when others hugged him, he immediately began to cry. But this time, when the girl took him, he did not cry. McLean asked with surprise why that was. The girl lifted Ryuto and, looking into his eyes, asked if he really loved his mother more than her. She asked why he was not crying and if he only desired motherly hugs. Surprised, McLean could not find an answer. The girl rushed forward in fear, deciding to immediately take the boy to the doctor. McLean tried to stop her and asked where she was rushing to. At night, when everyone was already sound asleep, Ryuto thought that Mom and Dad remained the same as always, and there was something calm and familiar in that. The boy raised his hands and began to use simple wind magic. He understood that if he trained continuously, even at a young age, he could master this element and make it his own weapon. He tried at least 4 times, but still could not manage. The magic slipped away as if the world itself refused to obey his childish hands. Ryuto wondered why he was doing all this at all, since he had already decided that he must become stronger, even if he had to go through pain and fatigue for it. In his first life, he explained to himself how the skill Wisdom would help him grow stronger. This ability allowed him to extract and verify any knowledge below rank B from people's memories. An imaginary library appeared behind his back. Thanks to Wisdom, he could read books from all over the world right in his own mind, as if the pages opened themselves before him. In his past life, he used this gift to become smarter even as a baby. He came across a mage's records that described how to record and transmit human experience. They conducted experiments on how to increase magical power in childhood. The main focus was on the child's talent and potential, forcing them to train constantly. If the child had exceptional talent, the highest results were achieved precisely during early development, when the body is most sensitive and knowledge shapes the entire childhood. However, to expand the magic reserve, it was necessary to use it daily until complete exhaustion. For adults, this ended with headaches, shock, or even madness. Therefore, even knowing the method, Ryuto in his first life could not perform it, as his body could not withstand such a load. But this time he had the skill Endurance, which allowed him to hold on where others fell powerless. Thanks to this ability, his magical power could grow infinitely. Especially in childhood, the development pace became hundreds of times faster than in adults. Once he was a simple peasant, and no matter how much effort he put in, there were limits he could not cross. Now he decided to move forward and leave others behind, because now the power was on his side. 2 years passed, and in the 4th month after birth, he went to the village priest to use the magical status tablet. Looking at his characteristics, the boy was surprised to find that he had grown much more than expected. He even liked just walking alone. After all, he was already 4 years old. He often went to the mountains alone to gather vegetables or herbs. Returning, he gave what he collected and bought necessary things at the market. Although this time he did not go to the mountains, he still had money for purchases. The answer to this question lay elsewhere. Cordelia appeared before him and said she would go with him to gather vegetables. But Ryuto coldly replied that he did not plan to take her with him. Cordelia began to cry and shouted that Ryuto did not want to play with her at all. She hated feeling so lonely. The boy patted her on the head and said that next time he would go with her, but now he apologized. But Cordelia angrily shouted at him and, turning around, exclaimed that she would not listen to him anymore. Ryuto thought that maybe he should leave home to avoid such misunderstandings. Now, wherever he was, he thought only about money and the next destination to go to. Standing in the forest, he activated the skill Physical Ability Enhancement of the 4th level. He worked in villages and on streets outside the city to earn money, and even in childhood this power helped him. Ryuto worked tirelessly to become stronger. In the city, the boy even treated people from illnesses. They thanked him, saying that despite his young age, he possessed amazing healing abilities. Long lines formed to see him. After all, it was rare for a child his age to be able to use even beginner-level healing magic. That is why he became a competitor to merchants by opening his own quick healing shop. However, even while increasing his magic reserves, he often got bored. When the supply ran out, he stopped healing to look naturally tired. He was busy spending his magic and earning money on the streets near city inns and hotels. He hid his savings under a small tree. Bringing in new earnings, he thought he had already collected a considerable amount. His stats were also rapidly increasing. On the way back, he noticed Cordelia, who was looking at him with annoyance. He asked what the girl was offended and said she would not listen to him, adding that she had been standing here since early morning. Ryuto took out his bag and began to take something out of it. He handed her a small souvenir, a sandwich with salad and bacon. Cordelia's eyes lit up with joy. He handed her a small souvenir, a sandwich with salad and bacon. Cordelia's eyes lit up with joy. The boy smiled inwardly, noting that it was always so easy with her, as if he had cared for her since childhood. When she finished the sandwich, she reached out her hand to him and said she was no longer angry. She admitted that she had spoken incorrectly and asked him to take her hand. They held hands and slowly walked back, sharing conversations about the day lived and ordinary children's stories. A year passed, and they were walking together through the field. Cordelia suddenly asked if he was really not having fun. She repeated her question. The boy nodded in agreement, although he actually wanted to run away. Because today merchants with trinkets had arrived in the village. These traders brought things from all over the world. For a small village, this was a true event of the century, and everyone wanted to see their goods. During the walk, Cordelia asked if his family would come. The boy replied that his parents lived modestly, not poorly, but very frugally. The weather had been harsh lately. One family almost sold their own child. Cordelia asked Ryuto to say the number 10 times. Then she asked what the hen was carrying. The boy immediately answered that it was carrying eggs. She laughed and said he was still too young to deceive her. The girl said she would catch him this time. She ordered him to say, "I hate," and then forced him to replace it with another confession, to say, "I love." While he was saying this, she looked at him in amazement. When Ryuto wanted to clarify, she admitted that she was happy to hear him say that he loved her. At that moment, she could no longer find the words. The boy stroked her head and said that those were very sweet words. He saw in her a close person, a childhood friend, a younger sister, or even a niece. He did not think of her as someone to fall in love with, but he firmly knew that she was truly dear to him. Together they reached the shopping streets. Cordelia said with admiration that it was incredibly beautiful here. Ryuto asked if she had any sweets. She asked him to wait a little, quickly ran off and bought something tasty, immediately handing it to him. She said that she had saved a few coins and reminded him that today was Ryuto's birthday, which he had completely forgotten. He was surprised because he did not think his birthday was so soon, as he had planned to save a gift for her birthday. So he took a flower and gave it to her instead of coins. 3 days ago, he had already congratulated her by decorating her hair with a flower. The girl again extended her hand to him, and, leaning in, suddenly kissed Ryuto on the lips. The boy instantly blushed. Stepping back, he asked confusedly why she had done that so suddenly. Cordelia replied that this is what mom and dad do to show that they are happy together, and Ryuto realized that he had accidentally touched her nose. He thought that this kiss might not have meant anything to her, but quickly understood he was wrong. The girl twirled and asked if this flower suited her. Ryuto confirmed and asked if it was time to return. He clarified if they had forgotten anything since they had bought everything necessary. The girl remembered that she had purchased a honey sweet, but had not tasted it yet. Ryuto asked to wait a little. In the future, she will joke that she always has a separate stomach for sweets. And the next day, the boy set off into the forest to search. It was rumored that a strange old man lived far from the village. Ryuto decided to go there to meet him. Looking at his own characteristics, the boy felt that he was truly growing. But he saw that so far he was only developing magic and its power, and that was not enough. After knocking, he entered the old half-ruined house. This time it happened, but when he inquired about her affairs, she just turned away with the same dissatisfied face. He needed a mentor. In the old hut, he saw a gray-haired man sitting alone, but the old man immediately drove away Ryuto, stating that he had no intention of teaching anyone. The boy replied that he did not come empty-handed and pulled something out of his bag. The old man asked in surprise if it was a joke, then Ryuto called him by name, Bernard, and asked for water. Bernard from Arbosti was once the strongest swordsman in the kingdom. He was born a peasant, grew up and married in the village. They lived poorly but were happy. But tragedy befell him 3 years after the birth of his daughter. The cruel monster killed his entire family. Having lost everything, Bernard disappeared from the village. Only decades later did he reappear, now at a fencing tournament. After that, he joined the victorious Knight Order and became its captain, gaining fame as an orc slayer and a fearsome nickname. The old man said that Ryuto already understood everything, so he could not teach him. But the boy took another item from his bag. It was an elixir, the only remedy capable of saving Bernard. The old man asked distrustfully where Ryuto got so much money. The boy opened his status and allowed the old man to see everything. He earned money by healing, but asked to keep it a secret. The old man asked in shock if he was a demon or a gift from the gods, as the stats were extraordinary. Ryuto replied that he was an ordinary person, just like Bernard, a simple peasant. Then Bernard asked why a peasant with power over 10,000 would want to become his student. After all, if he sought magic, he could have entered the Imperial Academy. The boy explained that being a peasant, he could not master higher magic. Bernard confirmed his words. Ryuto only added that he must become stronger but said no more, even though he did not want the old man to die. Bernard stood up, and the boy realized that he was hiding something in the room. The old man bowed in prayer before several items left from his family. Then he cut his hair and came out to Ryuto, asking how he felt. He himself said that he still remained a good warrior of the Knight Order. 6 years passed. Ryuto turned 12. It was already the 273rd month of his training. In a week, goblins were supposed to attack the village. Cordelia will enter the battle, but the enemy forces will prevail, and she will be defeated. However, then a dragon will appear and destroy the goblins. In the past life, Everything happened exactly like that. Now Ryuto decided to leave the village in advance and be the first to find the dragon's lair. He had something to do. First of all, he had to talk to his mother, who wanted to kiss him every morning. The boy asked her to stop and listen to him. He begged her to stop these kisses every morning. He said that he was already 12, and it was appropriate only until 6. The woman was stunned, but eventually agreed, admitting that he was right. But a moment later she tried to kiss him again, and Ryuto stopped her once more. She ran out of the house in tears, causing a commotion. The boy truly loved his family, but he had to gradually detach from them. 7 days remained until the attack. He wanted to ride the dragon and leave the village. Bernard said that the elixir would be enough for him. 7 years ago, Ryuto wanted to learn the steel body technique, which strengthened the body and was different from enhancing physical abilities. The latter multiplied basic characteristics, which was an advantage for a peasant, and steel body itself increased characteristics, especially useful when the basic stats were too low. Bernard said that without steel body, it was impossible to fully master the skill of enhancing physical abilities. Ryuto said that he already knows how to use the enhancement of physical abilities, after which he easily lifted the old man in his arms. Bernard landed in surprise and asked how the boy managed to increase his stats like that. He replied that anyone can achieve this if they are not afraid of pain. Ryuto remembered that the demon gates work the same way. Bernard cautiously noted that the boy knows forbidden techniques. The gates of demons truly allowed opening a path to places where demons dwell, releasing a power that the human body can hardly withstand. The old man sharply asked where Ryuto had learned this from. The boy replied that he was already dying and saw it himself. He knew. Steel body and physical ability enhancement are skills that mutually neutralize each other. When the magical energy runs out, the demon gates begin to devour the soul until the technique is cancelled. Bernard asked if he knows that this will exhaust him and lead to death. Is he ready to start learning now? Ryuto replied that his strength had already exceeded 10,000, and it was time to take this step. The old man confirmed his words. If this is true, then the boy will be able to fully master the demon gates. He said that Ryuto will definitely become strong. The boy only replied that he had no other choice. For 12 years he did everything possible. Only 1 week remained ahead. On the first day of the 4th month, Cordelia's parents announced that they were preparing her to join the Order of Knights. In 2 years she was supposed to gain practical experience and become a knight at her 12. But the girl thought these were just empty words. In reality, they would have thrown her into the order not as a squire, but thanks to connections, she would have immediately been made respected and at the same time thrown into real battles. She was not supposed to be afraid, but inside she did not want to take the lives of others. Her mother directly asked if she was afraid. Then Cordelia burst into tears because it was her first and last request. Everything seemed unfair, even despite the financial support the family received. Her father asked if she was afraid, emphasizing that a hero must not be weak. He said that Cordelia was chosen by the seer herself. Her mother jumped up but could not say anything. Cordelia said she was not afraid, but thought it would have been better not to accept this gift at all. She apologized and said she would go to her room. Her father wanted to accompany her because she was feeling unwell. But the girl replied that everything was fine and pushed him away, but misjudged her strength. She decided that it was the result of a sudden magic surge. Her father lost consciousness, hitting the wall, and the relatives rushed to him. The rest looked at her in horror, not understanding what was happening. Cordelia ran out of the house, all in tears and despair, thinking that she understood nothing and needed help. She knew that today the flower festival was supposed to take place. The central square of the city was to be decorated with bouquets symbolizing the arrival of spring. On this day, there was usually plenty of food and merchants, but this year the festival was suddenly cancelled, and no one knew why. Sitting on a bench, the girl sank into memories. Ryuto approached her and said he wanted to show something. Wiping her tears, she asked what he meant. He sat before her and admitted this was the worst flower festival, and she agreed. Ryuto extended his hand to her and said to go with him. Although they were the same age, at this moment he seemed older, as if her childhood friend had turned into an older brother. His back looked broader and more reliable than before. But she knew that their paths were already diverging. Although they had always been together, from now on everything was supposed to change. Cordelia admitted that she was scared even to think about it, and did not know if it was right. Ryuto only replied that it was absolutely normal. Poor Cordelia admitted that she is a hero. Ryuto said that if it is a burden for her, then she should not follow this path, because life should not be coercion. The girl hesitated. Then Ryuto suggested running away together, to a place where no one would know she was a hero. Even he himself did not fully understand why he said that. Even if 2 children had run away from the village, they would not have survived. but the thought of being near him seemed tempting to her. She almost agreed when he suddenly said that they had already arrived. Cordelia looked around in surprise and could not believe the beauty of this place. Around were abundant sakura flowers. Ryuto said he bought these seedlings 6 years ago. For Cordelia, this was the first blooming she had seen. She asked what kind of place it was. The boy replied that it was created by himself. The girl did not immediately understand the meaning of his words. Ryuto explained that he knew. She loves flowers, and he did it only for her. Cordelia was stunned. She understood. Having received the hero's power, she was not the only chosen one. Ryuto, though a peasant, had the power to grow and create. Everyone in this world had their role. Her gift was the power of battle and heroism, protecting friends from enemies. She sincerely thanked Ryuto. Cordelia asked how many years it took to grow this garden. Ryuto answered, about 7. He added that it was important to start small and gradually. The girl recalled that this year she was told that the flowers would not bloom. Suddenly Ryuto said he felt the threat of a great catastrophe. He felt that the form of the earth spirit seemed distorted. Maybe it was just imagination, but Cordelia assured that it did not matter. She would protect him, because that was her role as a hero. That day he could only stand and watch as she cried. 2 years passed. Cordelia stood defending the village, and monsters were already approaching. In the village where she and Ryuto grew up, the time had come, and she could not escape her own fate. Cordelia fought desperately because she had to protect him. Meanwhile, the boy ran through narrow streets, avoiding goblins that were destroying everything in their path. But he stumbled and fell into the mud. When he raised his eyes, he saw that the monsters were already nearby, ready to kill him. But at the last moment, they were destroyed by Cordelia, who managed to run up. Seeing him alive, the girl smiled joyfully. But Ryuto immediately noticed a goblin sneaking up from behind, trying to deliver a deadly blow to her. The girl instantly turned around and deflected the attack with her sword, although she was already on the verge of exhaustion. She assured that she was fine and said that she came here to clean up the trash. Ryuto thought that he was deliberately delaying his escape. He had to do everything so that the events of his previous life would repeat. If he used power and changed the course of history, the chance to get into the dragon's lair would disappear. Because if the red dragon did not appear, Ryuto would not be able to reach its hideout. And suddenly he noticed something terrible on Cordelia's hand. It was black magic that left a rotting, incurable wound on her left hand. Now he understood why she wore long sleeves even in summer. He tried to calm himself by thinking that she would not die from this. He wondered, why does he strive to become strong? To be a hero? A member of the hero squad? In reality, he did not want this. Could it be that he sharpened his teeth in silence only for such moments? And when the monster almost defeated Cordelia, the boy stood up. He thought that Izumaru To would never stand aside either. Ryuto activated several skills at once. Physical strength enhancement, steel body, and demon gates. He smiled, thinking with relief and joy. Finally he succeeded. With quick movements, he began destroying goblins one by one, while Cordelia just watched, unable to do anything. Blood dripped from his hands, and the monsters were afraid to come closer. Their faces expressed horror before the peasant boy. Ryuto felt piercing pain, even despite active endurance. He remembered how everyone wanted to make Cordelia a hero, burdening the little girl with an unbearable load, not letting her live her own life. He turned to her and said to leave the rest to him. But the girl begged him to run away, since he was an ordinary peasant, incapable of defeating such a number of monsters. Ryuto only smiled cruelly and shouted that he was the strongest peasant in this world. The peasants did not understand what was happening and began to panic, but later everyone noticed. Ryuto was among them. Hearing this, Elder McLean grabbed a pitchfork and rushed to her son, but others stopped her. Eventually, Ryuto's father hit her and knocked her unconscious. Elder McLean thought that his son was always hiding something, but never knew his true purpose. The boy continued this fight. He noticed that the enemy's weapons were extremely fragile and began turning them against them, destroying the monsters, burning the village even faster. He mentally noted, as expected from the village's chief blacksmith, the weapons were truly high quality. It would be good to have such at home. Grabbing the sickle, he began mowing down goblins with terrifying speed. Some monsters started shooting arrows. Ryuto activated the skill crop growing. Giant stalks grew from the ground. He climbed up them and attacked from above. He thought that he had never guessed before that power could be used like this. Then he met face to face with a huge goblin and asked if he was their leader. The goblin responded with a roar and charged forward. The boy realized that this monster was extremely fast and strong. The fight immediately intensified, and he began taking blows one after another. Cornered, he grabbed a pitchfork and stabbed the monster with it. Cordelia and the villagers were stunned by what they saw. The monster tried to get up, but Ryuto used another skill. The next moment, the goblin's body turned into a bloody mess. He fell to the ground, and almost immediately a huge paw crushed him. A dragon appeared before everyone. It said that the prophecy had come true, and the time of great trials for this small world had come. The dragon noted that everything had happened differently than he expected, and asked what had happened. Ryuto told him to read his thoughts. It would be faster that way. The monster agreed and admitted. The boy had received a promise, and therefore he must return to the dragon's lair. Ryuto laughed and said that a word is a word. The dragon confirmed that dragons never lie. The boy asked if he could take him on his back. Cordelia asked where he was going. The boy replied that he was heading to the dragon's lair and would return in 5 years. She asked why. Ryuto explained that Cordelia is a hero, and even if he is stronger now, in a year she will be able to catch up with and surpass him. She asked whether he would really become as strong as a monster, whether he would really leave the village and support the hero while remaining a villager. Ryuto replied that he must do this because ordinary people cannot compare to heroes. Cordelia said that it was obvious. The villager turned out to be stronger than the hero. He did all this while no one knew. She asked why he compares himself specifically to her. She cried, asking why she could not protect him, and hated the thought that she would not see him for many years. Ryuto ran up and hugged her, promising that he would definitely return. After that, he climbed onto the dragon's back and said goodbye. Cordelia shouted that he always decides everything based only on his own desires and promised, even when he returns, she will not listen to him. To fulfill the promise given to her, Ryuto decided to become stronger and return at any cost. He set out for the dragon's lair. It was located in the very center of the continent, deep in the great forest. Here, all dragons took on human form to more easily build and wear clothes. The Dragon King's library was especially impressive. It was truly boundless. The girl said that today she made the choice herself, because yesterday the one they had been waiting for arrived. Ryuto replied that he must meet with the king himself. The old man strictly said to call him Lord. This was the human form of the red dragon with whom he arrived here. The boy insisted on meeting the king. The girl explained that among the holy race, the nag is the one who decides whom to accept. Ryuto was confused and asked her to do something. With a slight smile, the girl introduced herself as Lilith, and added that this was the name given to her by her parents. Ryuto apologized. Lilith noted that he was already 12, and dragons only accept those younger, so he could not live among them. Moreover, he still had not paid for the bracelets that reacted to status and showed a ring out of 5 possible. He understood that to see the king, his characteristics had to exceed the norm. He asked Lilith to look at his card. She glanced and said that he was granted permission for the meeting. The old man asked in surprise what she was talking about. Looking at the card, the old man himself was impressed. Ryuto asked why he was surprised since he had access to his thoughts. He replied that it was strange because the boy was surrounded by an energy barrier. Even the king would find it difficult to penetrate his mind. In other words, it was difficult to use mind control magic against him. Ryuto thought that this was extremely useful. This freed him from the need to choose an ability that would protect against abnormal states. Ryuto thanked Lilith, and together with the old man they set off to meet the Lord. He ordered the boy to raise his head and immediately realized that he was reincarnated because his characteristics spoke for themselves. Ryuto asked if there were others like him. The Lord replied that he had one friend of a similar kind and was sure Ryuto would appreciate his style. The boy noticed that it looked quite decent. The king thanked him and said that in this world it was avant-garde. Ryuto agreed and asked where he got the clothes from. The king replied that by chance, just like the boy himself ended up here. He had 5 suitcases for traveling, and he took them without hesitation. Ryuto said that he could travel anywhere like a true master. The Lord allowed the boy to read all the books in the Demon King's library. The old man noted that from now on he is responsible for the boy, and will not be able to bear such a burden if something happens. To this, the king replied that he would then take responsibility himself. Anyone who possesses 5 golden rings has the same rights as a dragon, or one can hold a ceremony and make him a dragon. Ryuto asked what that means. The elder explained that this was a special privilege that had never been used before. Instead of condemnation, he could be accepted as one of the dragons. But suddenly the Lord sternly said that he had not given the old man the right to raise his head. After this, the old man fell to his knees. Ryuto realized that the king's ostentatious kindness had deceived him. He could destroy the boy instantly, but he was not going to change his usual tone of conversation. The boy asked why the Lord was treating him that way. The king replied that there were 2 reasons. The first, in his distorted status. Only the boy's mana exceeded the mana of the Lord himself, and he respected that. Ryuto was surprised by the simplicity of the answer. The Lord said that this is how respect is shown to the strong. He asked if this was already the boy's second life in this world. Ryuto confirmed. The Lord said that there is another reason for his attitude. He asked if the boy understands that his actions are leading the world to destruction. Ryuto was stunned and silent. He asked if it was really his fault that the world was being destroyed. The king realized. The boy does not realize this. And it was all connected to Cordelia. After all, she is one of the 4 oracle heroes of this time, the most important people called to protect the world from catastrophe. The Lord confirmed. Heroes must disperse the darkness of despair with swords of hope. He asked if heroes should not be strong to protect the weak. Ryuto asked confusedly what the matter was. The Lord answered, what will happen if a peasant protects the hero? Since Ryuto repelled the goblin attack, world history has taken a path of madness. Cordelia had to suffer wounds, risking herself, and only then, to the limit, could she become stronger. The Lord said that this is the same thirst that Ryuto himself felt. After all, he also wanted to become stronger to protect those dearest to him. This is stronger than anything. At 15, the girl becomes a dragon slayer. Can this be achieved by accident? The goblin raid was supposed to be the impetus that would awaken her power, but Ryuto broke this chain. He saved the one who was supposed to save him, and thereby created a paradox. The fate of the world now wavered between paths. Dragon Slayer is the name of a hero who gives life and strength for future achievements. The Lord admitted that he cannot predict everything and does not know in what form the catastrophe will come. But he knows for sure the world is sliding towards destruction. He spoke with disappointment, but there was no point anymore. Ryuto's actions changed the course of history. The boy asked if this meant that Cordelia would soon perish, unable to cope with the dragon. The Lord confirmed. Ryuto replied that then he should forge even stronger steel. He chose a path stronger than even the hero's path. The Lord smiled, thinking of the peasant taming an evil dragon. Ryuto declared he would become a substitute for Cordelia and take everything upon himself so she could remain weak. The Lord asked if he was ready to be a hero protector under any circumstances. The boy firmly confirmed and asked the Lord to immediately grant him the divine protection of the Dragon King. The Lord grabbed his head and asked if he was getting too carried away. Ryuto replied that the dragon's path was more effective, and if he did not follow it, he would have sold his soul to demons. The Lord inquired if the boy understood the meaning of his own words. Ryuto answered that this was exactly why he bowed his head. The Lord did not believe him, and the old man thought the boy just wanted to return home. The Lord said he would never allow to live anyone who made a contract with demons, but he would hear the boy's last request. Ryuto only smiled and noted that the king liked such games. The Lord patted him on the head and said that it was true, and people like him were interesting to him. Then they shook hands. With this touch, the Lord bestowed the divine protection of the Dragon King. He weakened the curse that bound the peasant's profession, and now Ryuto could level up. In this world, experience is gained by taking the life force of the enemy, but the boy always remained at level 1. Now he could grow faster. His profession was limited by the curse of God, but now this was corrected by the protection of the Dragon King. He changed the growth limits of the peasant, raising him to the level of a dragoon, who could not surpass the hero, but grew faster at the level of a sage. The Lord said that time was running out, and asked if there were any more wishes. Ryuto replied that that was all. The king asked what he would do next. The boy answered that he would train hard and raise his level. 2 days passed after the goblin attack. The state sent researchers to count the losses. They recorded all the peasants' words. Then the authorities imposed a law of silence and destroyed all information about Ryuto's birth. Everyone was told that the victory belonged to the hero, and the confusion was explained by memory disorder after the chaos. When Cordelia met the McLean family, she immediately began to apologize. She could not find the right words, but was sure. She was to blame for everything, because it was because of her that Ryuto set out for the dragon's lair on this crazy adventure. But McLean calmed the girl, asking her not to blame herself. He said that the son went by his own decision, since boys always want to seem strong in front of girls. The mother added that he simply went on a journey. They promised to take care of the home so that the boy would have somewhere to return to. Cordelia sincerely thanked them. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the dragon's lair in the dark forest, Ryuto was preparing for the trial. In the underground labyrinth, he ran away from the monster, shouting that he could not defeat it. This was his first real test. The monsters of the trial could not leave their rooms, so Ryuto cornered himself. His expedition had been planned for months, but he was not ready enough. Lilith asked if he would give up, since this trial was created specifically for peasants of the first level. A few hours earlier they met, and Lilith inquired if there were traces of a battle. Ryuto began to explain but stopped, unwilling to reveal everything. He recalled hearing that Lilith was leaving the lair tomorrow and asked if it was true. The girl turned pale. Ryuto felt he had guessed and asked if it was connected to his appearance. Lilith replied that it was none of his business and reminded him she had no protector, as the red dragon had said. The only condition for a human to live in the lair was having a dragon guardian, but the earth dragon who cared for her had grown old and weak. Ryuto knew. A person without a guardian must leave the lair. It seemed cruel to him since Lilith had 3 golden rings. He asked if anything could be done. The girl pulled off her hood and showed a mark on her neck. It was a slave sign, a symbol of powerlessness and burden she bore. For in the world of dragons, only the law of strength prevailed. This brand was a complete curse, capable of washing the mind. It was impossible to erase or remove, and it forced living by others' rules. Before coming to the lair, Lilith had been a slave until she gained recognition. Yet even now, remaining a child, she was powerless to change anything. Ryuto understood. In the outside world, only misfortune awaited her. But she said it was nothing, for she had a name. A name gave the right to live anywhere. Cordelia was felt in her words. The boy wanted to say something to her but restrained himself and decided to act directly. He handed her a bag and ordered her to prepare, for they were going to the dungeon. In a frenzy, he rushed forward, understanding that everything could end the same way. A person who became a downgraded citizen dragon. To become a guardian, one had to become an adult dragon. So he went through all the formalities to gain the right to be called an adult dragon, only to save Lilith. She said she knew his strength and was grateful that he wanted to protect her, but asked him not to take risks. She had already accepted her fate as a slave. But Ryuto ordered her to be silent. He did not want her to live like that any longer. If he died for her, it would become an even greater burden. He had time to retreat and try again, but that was not the solution. Because refusal would mean losing the chance to become a substitute for the hero. He was doing this not only for her, but also for himself. Lilith was silent, and then he remembered. The soil system was weak, and it could be easily dug through. He asked Lilith to gather more branches. The girl brought a whole pile and recalled that Ryuto had said earlier, fresh branches would be very useful, although he did not explain why. Suddenly, she froze in surprise. Ryuto stood before her with a burning rod in one hand, the other hand extended, creating flames. The boy declared that the preparation was complete. Lilith looked at the huge pile of firewood and did not understand when he had managed to gather it. After all, before leaving, she had seen nothing like that. Ryuto explained. He simply held a branch, and using the growing skill, even dry wood quickly became a full-fledged log. His plan was simple: to light a fire and create thick smoke. He had thoroughly studied the information about the trials thanks to the wisdom of the ancestors. After all, their goalkeeper was the Minotaur, a familiar summoned by the dragons. The trials had their conditions. The creatures could not leave the room, and there were several other restrictions. Ryuto wondered what would happen if he threw the decks through cracks in the walls and set them on fire with fire and wind magic. He received the answer only after 10 hours. When he entered the room, he realized, this is how they poisoned the guard. Lilith was surprised, as she did not fully understand what exactly the boy had done. They moved on, and Ryuto felt pride. After all, he had defeated the guardian on his own. The next trial was the steel golem. Ryuto thought that the place truly resembled the description in the ancient texts. The golem was small, but incredibly maneuverable and protected. Simple sword strikes wouldn't harm it, so the boy decided to find another way. He took out a small device that instantly transformed into a little shovel. This maneuver surprised Lilith. She asked what he was doing. Ryuto replied that he was digging a pit, preparing a trap, using simple peasant skills. The boy added that it would take time and advised her to sleep. But Lilith objected. She reminded that they spent too many hours on the first trial, and the dungeon is huge, so finishing it in half a day is impossible. To this, Ryuto said that they were already inside the dungeon and no one would drive them out, so haste was inappropriate. He asked if they really had to meet the deadline. Lilith exclaimed emotionally that yes, absolutely. Ryuto doubted her seriousness. He advised her not to worry about the time, but the girl stubbornly insisted on her own, declaring that she would get angry. The boy only replied that then let her be angry. This knocked her off balance, and she angrily barked at him. Then she became embarrassed and stepped back. Ryuto understood that she felt defenseless and realized what a great person her previous guardian had been. The boy decided he would not leave Lilith alone in this world. 15 hours passed, and they returned underground. Using enhancement, Ryuto ran up to the golem. He attacked with all his might, then knocked it into a pit with a series of blows. Seeing the result, they shouted joyfully. Ryuto said that for a mindless iron doll, this was the end. The pit was filled with oil, and the monster would no longer be able to escape. This trial was created to train dragons against mindless opponents, and the simplest way to win is to throw the enemy into the pit. Lilith asked if this was really right. Ryuto reminded her that his ability was wisdom, and it was that which suggested the solution. They opened the next door, and the boy said that something more interesting awaited ahead. They entered the bonus level. Lilith asked in surprise what it was. Ryuto explained that it was a goblin breeding ground, a feeding base for familiars outside the trials. The dungeon had many summoned creatures for training, and they needed places to grow and feed. He was captured by goblins, and he bitterly said that their fate was to live to be eaten. This is cruel because their lives are shortened for the convenience of others. Ryuto felt he himself had often been in such a role. He destroyed the goblins and said he would take what was his. Wiping the blood off himself, the boy warned. Next there would be an underground lake. There they met a giant catfish whale. Ryuto asked if it was an island because the fish resembled one. It was slippery, and he could do nothing about it, but he needed to get water and wash the blood off himself. The boy went down into the water, which frightened Lilith. He calmed her, saying he was ready for anything, and added, "The catfish whale must be sleeping." But suddenly Ryuto was grabbed and pulled underwater. He could not believe it. A catfish cannot move during sleep. And only then did he realize there were two of them. Ryuto found himself face to face with a huge monster ready to tear him apart. He launched an attack, not wanting to appear weak. If the opponent is big, he can also fight. The boy wondered why he was still breathing, and guessed it was thanks to enhanced attributes. He swam upward, realizing it was a small catfish whale that had woken earlier and interrupted the sleep. This lesson taught him one cannot blindly trust old books. But suddenly he was grabbed again. The real father monster had awakened. Ryuto did not understand why it had come out of sleep. Probably it smelled blood or was avenging its offspring. The boy thought feverishly how to save himself, but suddenly realized he could not use magic. He remembered how in his past life he had also drowned in water. And at that moment a loud flash of electricity spread underwater. Later the boy was already lying on the shore, and Lilith was coughing breathlessly. She said that with his level of magic he would withstand the blow, so she put everything into one attack. Raising her hand, the girl reminded that she had 3 gold bracelets. Ryuto asked why she did not run away, since she promised to do so if he got into trouble. In response, Lilith slapped him and ordered him not to mock her. She screamed as if she could stand aside, knowing he was drowning. In tears, she begged him not to take the whole burden upon himself. The boy remembered Cordelia. The girl begged him not to waste his life and not to save her on his own. She asked what would happen to her if he died because of her. The boy took her face in his hands and promised they would do everything possible together to survive. He asked if that was enough. Lilith smiled. The 4th trial was the Corridor of the Undead, although it was more of a complex labyrinth filled with high-level fiends. There was no water here, and supplies could only be replenished by returning to the underground lake. Even if the journey lasted weeks, it could be completed in 20 minutes. Ryuto, holding Lilith in his arms, exclaimed that the task was accomplished. The rule of any labyrinth is to notice the sign and change it according to the conditions. Then the path will become shorter. This trial tested knowledge of ancient symbols. Lilith noticed that they slipped out of the trials every time. She did not believe that they could defeat the Guardians at such a depth. Ryuto replied that they really would not hold on any further. Together they peered through the opening and saw the 5th trial, the nest of lesser fire dragons. These were not true dragons, but lesser dragons. Despite their stupidity, they were no less dangerous and lethally combat capable. Lilith said that this is exactly why one should gain experience at early levels. Ryuto agreed. The boy threw the things aside and took out a shovel, declaring that they needed to rest. When Lilith wanted to object, he simply lifted her into his arms. He said that she should not overexert herself, because after the fight with the catfish whale she had exhausted all her mana. It was safe here, and the preparation would still take half a day, so it was better to rest. The girl really began to fall asleep. In her sleep, Lilith remembered the times of slavery, when people were cruel to her. One day all her tormentors were killed by dragons. To her, they then seemed like beautiful creatures. She became very attached to her savior, so she suffered greatly when he began to age. The girl woke up with tears in her eyes and asked herself how long she had slept. It was hot and bright. Ryuto, noticing that she had woken up, addressed her. The boy was covered in blood and asked if she had rested well. Lilith was horrified. He explained that it was the consequences of magic overload. His ability allowed him to endure, but it took away his health. He promised to heal himself with restoration magic when he finished the main task. Lilith asked what exactly he was doing. Ryuto answered, "Arsenal." The girl saw thick smoke and guessed that he had been doing this all the time. She exclaimed that it was pointless. Even dragonfire would not withstand a constant attack on wooden structures, and his life was not infinite. Bloody Ryuto replied that there was no point in talking if one could act. He said he had to do it, even if it sounded like madness. Lilith saw the flames growing stronger and marveled at the speed of the fire's spread. The boy explained that the roots were connected to the entire structure. He lifted a small seed under the building and said, "These roots grow quickly if you add heat and nutrients." And thanks to his ability, the speed could be increased even more. It was the incomprehensible power of plants. They could break cracks and destroy the strongest structures. Raising his hands for a spell, the boy said it was enough to add a little fire and wind into these cracks. A moment, and all the dragons were engulfed in flames. Ryuto's level began to rise rapidly. Wiping the blood, he noted that like a mage, he must have deep knowledge of spells to destroy the enemy with one strike. He thought he would ask the Dragon King about it, since he saw no point in becoming a guard for those who despised Lilith. Hearing this, Lilith could not hold back and laughed. Wiping tears of laughter, the girl admitted that she was impressed. Ryuto exceeded all her expectations, and she could only laugh. The boy silently watched her until he noticed new monsters running towards them. Raising his hands, he said that now the end had come. Thus he had reached the 80th level. He instantly activated the skill growing agricultural crops, and giant shoots burst from the ground. In an instant, there was no trace left of the monsters. Ryuto told Lilith that it was time to return upstairs, as they could climb up using the supports and vines. He prepared the equipment to deliver the final blow to the catfish whale and the armed golem. Raising the huge minotaur hammer, the boy said that this was exactly what they had been missing. Ryuto easily swung the weapon in the air, tossed it up, and caught it just as effortlessly. He was surprised at how light the weapon had become, and guessed that it was a result of leveling up. Smiling, the boy decided to check it once more. Together with Lilith, they returned to the second trial, the armed golem. Ryuto threw a hook into the pit and quickly pulled the monster up. Swinging the hammer, the boy smashed the golem. He was proud and happy because he finally reached the 100th level. At this stage, he acquired the skill Master of Profession, which distinguished an expert from a simpleton. This skill was weaker than a magical attack, but for a peasant, it was invaluable. And with magical power of about 20,000 in Ryuto's hands, it could become something unprecedented. The boy turned to Lilith with a request to wait a little, and he confidently turned to the third trial, a fight with the catfish whale. Ryuto instantly activated the skill Peasant's Fury. Smiling smugly, he thought that the experiment had turned out incredibly successful. However, in a real battle, using this would be extremely difficult. The boy weakly fell into the hands of little Lilith. He noted that the mana exhaustion from this skill even amazed his imagination. The girl was surprised when she noticed that Ryuto had fallen asleep. She could not believe it, then gently smiled. Placing the boy on her lap, she stroked his head. The last trial remained ahead, and it was the most terrible. Ryuto held the Minotaur's hammer in one hand and Lilith's hand in the other. The final trial was a battle with a zombie dragon. Descending down, the boy noticed that this opponent was little different from a living dragon. Lilith explained that after death, their souls are held in bodies thanks to the secret arts of dragons. Ryuto asked what almost dead meant. The girl replied that even in such a state they could not be guardians. The true purpose of this trial was to honor the passage of generations. Old dragons who became zombies passed their skills to the winners of this ritual. Thanks to it, beings with great divinity could become dragon gods. This skill increased the threshold of all enhancements by almost 1.5 times. It could not compare to the skill of a hero of the 100th level, but it was this skill that opened the way to the level of heroes. Therefore, Ryuto was ready to obtain it at any cost. Together they walked down the dark corridor and descended the stairs toward the light. Upon entering the large hall, the boy immediately noticed the huge altar. There a dragon of incredible size awaited them. Seeing it, Lilith immediately recognized her father, with whom she had spent her childhood. When the girl wanted to rush to him, Ryuto sharply stopped her step and stepped forward himself with a stern look. He began to analyze what was happening. It turned out that the Earth Dragon, Lilith's father, died about a month ago. There were no signs of a trial ritual being conducted, and restoring the labyrinth afterward always takes at least 30 days. Ryuto threw himself forward with all his might, and at that moment the dragon launched an attack. Using the power of the earth, the monster created stone boulders and began hurling them at the boy. Suddenly the boy's face met a heavy spiked mace. He rolled back and fell flat on his back. The Earth Dragon was slowly approaching, but something was holding it back. It turned out that Ryuto did not waste a second. He managed to activate the skill of growing agricultural crops. With powerful vines, the boy chained the dragon to the ground. Ryuto stood up, but the next moment the monster easily raised its paw, not even paying attention to the trap. He was amazed. The dragon immediately understood his plan, for the seed he had secretly sown instantly sprouted from the excess mana. Freed from the shackles, the earthly dragon swung its paw and threw the boy, slamming him against the wall. Rising from the ground, Ryuto thought only about how terrifying and strong this enemy was. The monster tried to deliver the final blow, but he managed to dodge and flew upward. Getting closer, he released his hook, catching the dragon. The boy smiled boldly, realizing that their strengths were clearly unequal. The next moment, Ryuto sharply dropped down, falling rapidly. Then he realized for the first time why this battle was sacred for dragons. The blow hit him right in the face, and he spun faster in the fall, while Lilith watched him. Dragons considered the fight a test of strength, a chance to surpass themselves. The next strike lifted the boy upward like a bullet, and he broke through the ceiling, leaving deep cracks in it. Ryuto could not believe how terrible the enemy's power was. Losing strength, he began to fall straight into the dragon's paws, yet despite everything, he felt that it was strangely thrilling. At that moment, the boy activated several skills at once, Steel Body and Demon Gate. He threw away his weapon and rushed downward. Previously, he relied only on physical ability enhancement, but even all the skills together could not compare to a real dragon. However, combining two enhancement skills, he got a chance to surpass even the monster's expectations. Swinging, Ryuto put all his strength into the strike, activating Peasant's Fury. His attack turned into a wave beyond comprehension, covering the dragon with unstoppable power. In a moment, the boy stood before the opponent, who was already bleeding from head to paws. With effort, Ryuto lifted the huge Minotaur hammer, preparing to finish off the dragon. But a moment before the final blow, he noticed something that made him stop. The boy threw the hammer down, refusing the finishing swing. Lilith, who had been silently watching the whole time, could not contain her despair and asked why he stopped. Gasping for breath, Ryuto replied that he could not do it. He said he could not hit her as long as he saw that expression on her face. In his eyes was a sad girl with tears and sorrow. Lilith herself did not understand why she was crying. Her father had already become a divine dragon, and this should have been a joy. At least she tried to think so. Wiping away tears, the girl turned away. The boy said the reason was that she was human. Her human part resisted the harsh rules of the dragons. Then Ryuto firmly declared that Lilith herself must deliver the final blow. She is the daughter of the Earth Dragon. Being half human, half dragon, she had to fulfill her father's wish and finish the story with her own hands. The boy sternly told her to accept the truth. The family had long been broken. Lilith answered fearfully that in that case, the blessing of the divine dragon would go to her, not him. Ryuto smiled gently and assured her that there was no need to worry. Everything would be fine. Tears appeared again in the girl's eyes. The boy said it was time to show her father her strength. These words gave her courage. She threw off the hood and approached the dragon, carefully embracing it. Lilith cried again, but this time her face was lit up with a smile. She sincerely thanked her father for taking her away and caring for her all this time. Suddenly, the dragon's body shone with bright light, illuminating the entire hall. It began to crumble before their eyes, rising upwards along with streams of radiance and warmth. A little girl sat next to the shining rays, not daring to move away. In a few moments, nothing remained of the dragon except memories. Lilith weakly sank to the floor, pondering what had happened. Ryuto approached and gently embraced her, after which the girl gave in and began to cry. With a heavy heart, she asked permission to stay a little longer in his arms, for it was the only thing she could do right now. Ryuto smiled gently and said that she could cry as much as she wanted. After these words, they sat for a long time in silent embraces. This moment reminded Lilith of her childhood when her father also held her close. Ryuto asked if she felt better and received an affirmative answer, after which the girl sincerely thanked him. Later, the boy held a small sheet with a record of skills in his hands. He thought that even if he did not get the skill he came for, at least he would level up. The message stated that he acquired a new skill, Blessing of the Divine Dragon, which increased the effectiveness of all enhancements by 1.5 times. He did not understand why he was the one who received this ability, since Lilith dealt the final blow. Looking at the girl, he noticed the same sheet in her hands, and she awkwardly said that she did not understand anything either. Lilith acquired the skill Spirit Guardian of the Divine Dragon, which granted resistance to diseases and significantly increased growth, attack, defense, magic, and evasion. Having read this, Ryuto could not hold back and laughed. Realizing the whole situation, He stopped even trying to restrain himself, chuckling out loud. Lilith looked confusedly at the boy who could not stop. Ryuto thought that exactly such a result should have been expected from this trial. She began demanding explanations, but when he calmed down a bit, he apologized to her. Additionally, he noted that her father, the Earth Dragon, was extremely caring but at the same time incredibly foolish. It seemed as if he consciously passed on his power to him so that Ryuto would take care of his daughter. The boy placed his hand on Lilith's shoulder and said that her father was nearby now. She looked up in surprise. He added that her father's spirit would always be with her. And at these words, tears welled up in Lilith's eyes again. Later they decided to rest and drink tea. Lilith asked what they would do after returning to the surface. Ryuto replied that he first planned to spend time in the Demon King's library, and then set out on a journey to level up, gather new skills and equipment. Drinking hot tea, the boy solemnly said that he would become her protector and vouch for her in the future, so she could allow herself to do anything she wished. He even added that she could continue working as a librarian in the city. Lilith listened to him with a slight anxiety in her eyes. Noticing this, Ryuto smiled and asked if she wanted to go with him. In response, the girl happily said she would be only glad. Meanwhile, Cordelia recalled the moment when she realized that the knight in shining armor did not exist. She remembered how in childhood someone came to tell her that she was chosen as a heroine, and how she stood before a crowd of people who hid their true faces behind masks. Little Cordelia told the boy next to her that she would become a heroine because she had to fight for everyone in this world. The boy asked what she herself wanted. She replied that she wanted to protect everyone, but at the same time admitted that she was afraid. Afraid of demons, lords, evil dragons, and even the smiles of those people. She wondered what was hidden behind their facial expressions. The girl cried, admitting that she could not do it, even if she wanted to believe. Then Ryuto said that he would help her. He promised that wherever she was and whoever became her enemy, he would always rush forward and defeat them. So she should believe in herself and act as her heart commands. These words made her happy. She remembered that the boy seemed older than his age, and in childhood she perceived him as an older brother, while she herself was like a younger sister to him. To her, he was that same knight in shining armor. However, Cordelia realized they were different. He was a peasant, she was a heroine, and between them was a chasm. The girl recalls that even despite the absence of open condemnation, the surroundings never recognized her nor forgave her, yet she was still happy. She believes that the hero's task is simply to protect the peasants, and that protecting every life and every smile is her true work. However, the memory of her 12th birthday surfaces, when the peasant turned out to be stronger than the hero himself. Cordelia understands that then the boy's strength lagged behind hers by dozens of steps, and she never believed that he was capable of saving her from danger. She asks herself whether those knights in shining armor even exist at all. But still, she has a friend who will protect the world together with her. Suddenly, the crowd bursts into laughter, and one boy mockingly asks if she is telling the old tale again, reminding her that back then she was a child and no peasant can surpass the hero. Cordelia assures that thanks to him she was saved from death. The young man begins to clap and allows everyone to laugh, mocking whether her knight in shining armor ran away with the dragon because he was scared. But one of the knights asks not to mock the lady, and reminds if they have heard stories about peasants who single-handedly defeated entire hordes of goblins. Cordelia exclaims that it is true, but the knight objects, saying that even if she now destroyed hundreds of thousands of goblins, their growth and development would still never allow them to become true comrades in battle. The young man declares that he is the one mocking Lady Cordelia the most. Another knight hurriedly exclaims that he did not intend to embarrass her, but only wanted to give her words at least some plausibility. Cordelia thinks, after all, the incident with the goblins 3 years ago was recorded and published in such a way as to show that supposedly her magic got out of control. She recalls how a boy named Ryuto died, and her memory was clouded by declaring his death only an illusion created by her own consciousness. She thinks that if only Ryuto were really nearby. The girl slaps herself on the cheeks and says she will go for a walk to clear her head. Someone jokes that if she is going to pick flowers, she is moving in the wrong direction, and a knight shouts that he is drunk. A man gives the boys a knock on the head and orders them to stop fooling around. Another explains that they generally drink in the deep forest only thanks to the hero's sensitivity, so they should be grateful. Cordelia drinks cold water straight from the barrel. She reflects that the goal of their expedition is sandworms. By order of the Inquisitors, the monsters here are too strong, and the knights deal with them effortlessly, not needing her help. The girl has a strange feeling, and suddenly someone loudly calls her name. A squad commander stands before her and asks if everything is all right. Cordelia only nods, and the commander calls to all the warriors to focus. He orders to form groups of 5 and remain vigilant even when the enemy is not visible before their eyes. Everyone prepares for battle, and Cordelia feels something is wrong and reports that there is only one enemy, but she has a very bad premonition. She insists on retreating. The commander orders everyone to withdraw, maintaining formation. And at that very moment, the invisible enemy cuts off the commander's head. All the knights shuddered upon seeing the body of their leader. The girl with the umbrella laughed and asked if they really thought they could escape from her. She declared that she would not allow anyone to escape, as she intended to kill them all one by one. Cordelia immediately realized that this was the evil dragoness Amanda. She unmistakably recognized her form and aura, recalling that she had already devoured young heroes, and now she was the target. Cordelia decides that it is time to fight. She turns to the knights and shouts that this is war, ordering them to surround the enemy. But the knights stand motionless, not daring to move. Amanda mockingly asks if she is really that stupid, and explains why she killed the commander first. Cordelia understands. The knights relied only on her intuition, and now everyone realized that the evil dragoness is much stronger than her. She realizes that behind the hero's title stands only a little girl, and the knights do not obey her orders. At that moment, a new commander shouts for everyone to stay vigilant. He orders them to line up in 3s and not lose their fighting spirit, assuring that there is only one evil dragoness against them. And if they fight united, they can withstand. The knights are inspired and prepare for battle. They remember the day they were introduced to the new hero, and the oath that they would become knights who would help her in the hardest moment. Knights summon a storm and cast a wind spell, after which Augusta Vera swiftly attacks the evil dragoness. But she does not even move, activating her triple shield breakthrough skill. Amanda strikes with an umbrella, and Cordelia realizes that the whole tactic with 3 shields was just a trap. One was to intercept the enemy's skills, and the other 2 to use a counterattack. However, the knight is wounded and understands that the abilities were not blocked, although he still managed to hold the monster back. Several brave warriors rush at the evil dragoness simultaneously, raising heavy hammers above their heads, trying to break through her defense. But Amanda cuts off the heads of all who dared to attack with one move, and knocks Cordelia off her feet, pressing the girl's head to the ground with her heavy boot. Standing on her head, Amanda mockingly shouts that they are too fragile and weak, because it was enough for her to just stroke them a little, and they all broke. She admits that it is hard for her to restrain herself. Frightened knights flee, unable to withstand the horror before the evil dragoness. Amanda mockingly asks if they really think to run away, and with pleasure creates several huge orcs around, blocking their path. While the orcs attack, Amanda grabs Cordelia by the hair and pulls her down, tauntingly asking if the knights really call themselves orc killers, since these creatures are only grateful to them for appearing. The orcs tear the knights one by one with inhuman cruelty, leaving no one alive. Amanda throws Cordelia to the ground and forces her to watch, shouting that now her friends have returned to her again. Before Cordelia's eyes appear dead comrades walking straight at her, and Amanda mockingly asks if she feels lonely, because this is how a hero should be desecrated, forced to fight his own. Crying, the girl is forced to raise her sword and slash former comrades who have turned into monsters. She defeats one orc and shouts to the knights to control themselves, for only cold blood can save them. But the frightened soldiers scatter and Cordelia vainly tries to stop them. Amanda instantly finishes off the fugitives with energy balls. Cordelia feels how heavy this magic is, and the dragoness mocks her, asking what feelings it evokes in the hero. She declares that she clearly sees this hero will never be able to become a true leader and organize the most terrible order of the night. Cordelia cuts off the energy charge with her sword, and Amanda, slightly surprised, admits that she is doing well since she managed to destroy her attack. However, the next moment the dragoness unleashes many magical spells on her simultaneously, forcing Cordelia to block the blows one after another. The exhausted girl realizes that her hands no longer obey, and the sword becomes unbearably heavy. Amanda cheerfully asks if it is time to surrender already. She lunges at Cordelia again, and she barely manages to dodge, although the wave of attacks does not stop. Amanda laughs, promising that this next barrage will be her last, and continues to strike her on various parts of the body. She approaches the heroine and mockingly asks if she realizes that she is actually completely alone. Around lie piles of dead knights killed by her or the orcs. Amanda says with pleasure that there are many orcs here, and seems truly happy at this sight. Cordelia remains silent, having no strength to respond. The evil dragoness grabs the heroine by the hand and confesses that she loves most to watch orcs devour people alive. She describes how they start eating from fingers and feet. At first, people beg for help or for a quick death, but in agony they soon begin to pray only for everything to end faster. Amanda asks if Cordelia knows that she likes these facial expressions so much that she even allows the victims to live longer, restoring them with her own magic. She exclaims that she will never tire of this distorted pleasure, and admits that she even wants to hug them at this moment. Amanda's laughter echoes over the battlefield. She enjoys her victory, and Cordelia only thinks about whether this humiliation could have been avoided. Suddenly, Amanda puts her hand into her mouth and pulls out a small object, holding it in her palm and asking what it is. She swallows the find and says that it was poison with which Cordelia planned to end her life. Amanda mockingly asks if the heroine knows that now she has been completely defeated. Amanda mockingly asks if she has already used the spell Heartlock, capable of healing mental wounds even in B-rank heroes. She throws Cordelia to the ground, clarifying that she tries to escape into oblivion even before it begins, although breaking a hero's psychic abilities is extremely difficult. Stepping away from her, Amanda sneers, saying that her defeat is so boring that she wants to finish her off faster to end this banality. But suddenly, her magical strike is stopped by Ryuto, who appears from the shadows and takes the attack upon himself. He destroys the orcs, and Cordelia with surprise begins to realize what is really happening. She rises, thinking that it is impossible, that such a thing simply cannot be. And looking at him, the girl understands. Before her is her true knight in shining armor. Ryuto turns around and quietly apologizes, admitting that he is late. He explains that he heard about Cordelia's meeting with the evil dragoness Amanda in the forest, but did not know all the details, and ran here upon seeing flashes from magical strikes. He heals her with magic, helps her to stand up, and asks if her hand is trembling. Cordelia admits that she promised, but still does not listen to his advice. Ryuto hugs her, apologizing once again for the trouble, and the girl breaks into tears in his arms. Amanda launches a new magical attack, but he protects her with his body, taking the hit himself. The dragoness exclaims with delight that it is wonderful. He was able to withstand her energy ball again. Ryuto boldly replies that next time she should not enter the church, because he has finally prepared a worthy drink. Amanda suspiciously asks who he is, a hero or not, because she does not sense the scent of a hero from him. Ryuto only smiles and rhetorically asks if it really matters. He proudly declares that he is merely a peasant, and asks what will happen next. The dragoness is amazed, since she does not sense any aura from him, and wonders if the real reason for his strength is precisely that he is a peasant. The boy ironically remarks that despite all her power as an evil dragoness, it didn't help her much either, to which she only smiles mysteriously. Ryuto looks at the bodies of the fallen knights and asks if she had any reason to kill them, or if it was just a bloody amusement. Amanda replies that she had no reason, except that she found it fun, and that was enough. Angered, Ryuto lunges forward, trying to cut off her head, and shouts for her to stop laughing. She dodges the blow. She skillfully avoids all his attacks, moving as if she is dancing on the battlefield. Then she notices his weapon, noting that it is a very rare sword, and asks where he got it. She steps on the blade's tip with her foot, and mockingly says that this sword does not suit him at all. The boy calmly sheathes the sword and admits that he thinks the same. Cordelia realizes how strong Ryuto has become, but he shouts at her not to interfere in this fight. He asks her to leave everything to him, assuring that one is more than enough to deal with the evil dragoness, as he wants to prove something important. He entrusts Cordelia with dealing with the orcs, and he himself calls Amanda to face him. Turning around, the girl sees a huge crowd of giant orcs before her. The dragoness rises into the air and flies after him, laughing that he will not escape since he provoked her himself, so now she is playing with him. Amanda says with curiosity that she is eager to hear what exactly he wanted to feel, and asks what funny words he just spoke, but Ryuto lands on the ground, activates the enhancement of physical abilities, Steel Body and Demon Gate, declaring that he will now show her the answer. He sharply flies forward and with a powerful blow strikes her right in the heart, causing Amanda to fly back with a wild roar like a projectile, slicing through the air with her body. She is thrown back several meters, and the ground beneath her crumbles from the force of the fall. Ryuto confidently walks toward the fallen opponent, clenching his fists and looking at her with a gaze that knows neither fear nor doubt. Amanda scares him with her face, asking if he is afraid, and admits that she is surprised. Making a hole in her body with one blow when she was relaxed is a simple but impressively effective method. However, she boldly states that the blow was weak, since he still could not defeat her completely. Gathering strength, Amanda prepares for a counterattack, but Ryuto meets her with a kick, throwing her back. He mercilessly attacks her further and even cuts off her head, but she instantly recovers. Amanda does not manage to finish the phrase about his skill because he attacks her again. She suddenly realizes that his attacks do not stop for a moment, and shouts irritably that she cannot believe this madness. Composing herself, Amanda activates her power and mockingly apologizes for disrupting his rhythm, promising to show at least part of her true might. Ryuto coldly asks if this is the same ability that only dragons can use, and declares that he also possesses it, stunning Amanda. She asks in amazement how an ordinary peasant can use the secret techniques of the dragon race itself. Ryuto replies that a series of events made him the unofficial successor to the dragon throne, shows her the ring, and tells her to look more closely because it is proof of his words. Amanda cries out in despair that it is impossible, that he must have stolen the ring, because otherwise it is impossible to explain why a simple peasant can summon the arrival of the divine powers of the dragon. He begins to activate the ability Arrival of the Dragon God, and mockingly asks if this is exactly what she mentioned, adding that now it is her turn to show what she is capable of. Amanda is shocked. Before her is not a hero or a warrior, but a simple peasant who one by one uses the secret techniques of dragons. She realizes that this is not an illusion, but the true arrival of the dragon god. She shudders at the thought that she herself, the most terrible and evil dragoness, trembles with fear before a peasant, and cannot understand why this horror overwhelms her. She notes that this boy does not use magic at all. Logic suggests to her that working as a peasant, he should not have access to spells, and she hastily casts the spell Binding. Thin chains bound the youth's body, depriving him of any mobility and the ability to use his abilities. Amanda laughs joyfully and says that even if he turned out to be the next king of dragons, he turned out to be foolish because he did not protect his mind from magic, did not take anti-magic equipment, and is now completely defenseless. She announces that it is time to show him her true power. She hoarsely says that now he will see all her might, and explains that she is called abnormal because of the many demonic eyes she possesses. Amanda approaches him and explains that activating the demonic eyes triples her magic, and with a sly smile asks if he knew that there is no person capable of resisting her charms. She takes him by the chin and whispers for him to become her servant, promising to take care of him, and Ryuto disgustedly pushes her away with his foot, telling her not to show him such filth, because it almost made him vomit. Amanda falls to the floor, writhing in pain, while the boy with a cold smile asks if this is her true power, and declares that he has long known her dragon magic does not affect him. He thanks her, admitting that thanks to this fight he felt how he truly became stronger, then adds that it is over with her, and orders her to die. Amanda shockingly repeats his words. She recalls that she herself is the embodiment of power, a being equated to disasters, a heretical offshoot of the most powerful dragon race, and cannot believe that she is being humiliated like this. She is outraged how he dared to speak to her, the evil dragon Amanda, as if to a dog, and order her to die. Then suddenly she smiles eerily, admitting that she agrees to die by his hand. Amanda coldly says that death means nothing to an evil dragon, because even if they die of old age or in battle, they resurrect again in their strongest form. She understands that the next rebirth will be only in 300 years. But by then, this boy will no longer be here, and she will have to entertain herself again with pathetic, weak opponents. Reito draws a sword glowing with magical light, and coldly tells her that there will be no next time for her anymore. Amanda asks in horror why he has changed so much, begging him not to say what this blade is, but the boy solemnly announces that it is a sacred sword created to destroy evil dragons. The young man was already preparing to deliver the final blow when Cordelia's scream sounded, reporting that she had defeated all the orcs and could now help him. Amanda realized that this was her last chance to grab this girl. She rushed forward but suddenly received a powerful magical blow, and at that moment Lilith appeared. Cordelia exclaimed her name in amazement, and Lilith, turning around, only threw a cold, "You annoy me terribly." Amanda angrily asks who this girl is and where she came from, but Lilith indifferently replies that it does not matter at all. Reito says that the only important thing is that he is going to destroy Amanda right now, and the dragoness shouts for him to wait, because the death of an evil dragon could disrupt the balance of the world. However, the boy does not listen and instantly slices her body in half, leaving her no chance to escape. Cordelia, still trembling, asks if that was not a killing blow but true destruction, and Reito calmly explains that he destroyed her soul forever, depriving her of the possibility to be reborn. Cordelia holds her head, confessing that her brain is ready to explode from everything she has heard. But despite everything, she joyfully rushes to him, happy that he has returned. Lilith sharply stops her, warning that it is dangerous to approach Reito because the curse is not yet sealed. Cordelia confusedly asks what that means. Lilith explains that with each taboo acquired, the boy's power grew, and although he is resistant to most ailments, the curse works differently, slowly gnawing at him from the inside. Cordelia stubbornly asks again, and irritated Lilith says that the power he holds in his hands is both a curse and he can only use it inside its protective barrier. Lilith adds that this is the price he pays for using such power in the body of a simple peasant. Cordelia despairingly exclaims that this is not what she asked about, and why he must stand so far from her. Reito assures that he promised to save her and asks if it is true. He swears to do everything to always be by her side. Cordelia almost loses her speech from happiness hearing these words. She thanks him sincerely, her eyes shining with tears of joy. Reito responds to her with a warm smile, from which she loses her balance even more. At the same time, both Cordelia and Lilith irritably point fingers at each other, asking in unison who this woman is, and a new tension flares in the air. A few days earlier, before the death of the evil dragon. Night Library. Lilith approaches the gigantic doors and slowly opens them. She finds an ancient book covered with the dust of time. She thoughtfully says that this is a secret tome of dragons, filled with records of primal magic created throughout the existence of their race. She recalls that initially this tome was inaccessible to humans, but 2 years and 1 month ago something happened that changed this forever. One of the men pounds his fist on the table and exclaims that this is unacceptable. He shouts that even if the one who passed the trial gained access, 3 golden rings of the servant grant the right to read the secret tome. And this is ridiculous, they cannot allow that. He adds that even the order of the Lord himself cannot make them agree to this nonsense. Another man, standing next to Reito, sighs and admits that the problem is indeed serious because they are right in their own way, and says that in this world power equals justice. Reito struck the man on the arm with force, and from his blow deep cracks appeared on the massive table, causing everyone present to feel the trembling under their feet. The man turned pale, recognizing in him the strength of a true champion of justice, and, bowing his head, apologized for the rudeness. But Reito just waved his hand, suggesting to continue the conversation. The man inquired whether it was true that by allowing his daughter to read the secret tome, he himself could become stronger, and heard from the boy a confident. From this moment he would become increasingly powerful. Lilith called Reito, her voice trembling as if she feared to hear something relentless from him. She asked if he intended to leave her, and the young man seriously replied that right now she would only hinder him, and he could not protect her all the time. He promised that he would train alone for 2 years, and she would learn to read the secret tome during that time. And Lilith, swallowing the pain, agreed, devoting all her strength to learning. She memorized all the spells written in that dragon tome, word by word, as if it were the most precious treasure. However, not being a dragon, she realized that no matter how many spells she learned, she could not use them, and it was like an animal understanding human language but never being able to respond. She often wondered whether it made any sense at all, or if all her work was just a futile illusion. 2 years had already passed, and Lilith began to think that his promise was just an excuse to leave her. She believed that the only thing he really needed was the blessing of the divine dragon, and in her he held only a phantom hope. However, Reito, turning around, said with admiration that she really managed to do it. Lilith threw herself into his arms, feeling how her heart finally melted after long years of waiting. She said that he had kept her in loneliness for too long, and he apologized for that, lowering his eyes. The boy asked if she was now able to use magic, and heard a confident answer that she could master any magic, from basics to the highest, and her skill in working with magical items was now at its maximum. Regarding dragon magic, Lilith reminded that she could not apply it, but upon his clarification admitted that if she were a dragon, she could use 70% of all the power. Reito gently stroked her head and said that she had truly done a huge job. He explained that he was delayed only because he was looking for something for her, and, smiling, pulled out a ring. The boy put it on her finger and asked her to accept it as a symbol of their unity and his promise. Lilith looked stunned at the ring on her left ring finger, her heart pounding wildly. The young man seriously asked if she was ready, saying that time was running out, and asked her to pack her things. She asked confusedly what exactly she needed to prepare for, and Reito answered, for the destruction of the evil dragon. A few hours after the dragon's fall, Cordelia received a letter delivered by a pigeon. The message said that reinforcements would arrive in about 2 hours. Reito turned to her, asking if she wanted to abandon the role of the hero and escape from all this burden. He said he would invent an explanation, as if she had died from a dragon or gone on a journey, and suggested escaping together. But Cordelia only smiled sadly, admitting that the offer was tempting. But she immediately exclaimed that she was a hero. She firmly said that she would never run away, and even being weak now would definitely surpass him. Reito replied that he already knew that. He set off with Lilith, declaring that he would save her again and again, no matter how many times it was needed, and strictly ordered her not to dare to die. When they disappeared from sight, Cordelia only sighed and remembered that she had not asked him who that mysterious girl in the hood was. Lilith walked, holding his hand tightly, but the boy asked to be released. She quietly said that she had rejected his kindness because she never believed that a hero could turn out to be like that. She confessed that she always thought he would only help her from the shadows, but Reto replied that it was impossible then, and added that it was precisely because of him that she was now so weak. He thought that in a previous life Cordelia had personally defeated the evil dragon, but now her strength was already at the limit, since the story was rewritten, although she still remained the key for humanity, because that was her fate. Lilith only shrugged and said coldly that she did not care about the fate of people and heroes because even the death of humanity would not affect them if they lived in the dragon village. She showed him a ring that Reto once put on her middle finger, and the young man noted that it was a rare artifact, the Nocturne ring, and asked her to take care of it. Lilith explained that a ring on the middle finger of the left hand means engagement, but Reto calmly said that if it bothered her so much, she could wear it on the right hand. It just works better on the left. Offended, she fell silent, but he did not even notice because he heard a commotion and asked what was happening when a carriage with troops appeared ahead. Reto understood that it was a noble procession and said that he did not want trouble, advising Lilith to bow low to avoid unnecessary attention. One of the nobles ordered him and Lilith to stop, got out of the carriage, and the knight nearby wanted to intervene, but the master stopped him, saying it was a trifle. The man approached Lilith and ordered her to remove her hood. She looked at Reto, and receiving a nod from him, obediently uncovered her face, after which the noble immediately called her a runaway slave. He grabbed her and declared that he was taking her to the guild, forcing her to go by force. Lilith shuddered in pain, and Reto realized that this was a trigger word, so he shouted for them to stop, saying that he found her first and would take her himself. It flashed through his mind that he should not get involved in slave matters, but the lie was already forced. The noble threw him a ring and continued to drag Lilith, but Reto shouted stop a second time and grabbed his hand. Squeezing too hard, the boy accidentally broke a bone and hastily let go, apologizing. The man shouted that a commoner dared to raise a hand against a noble and ordered him to be killed. The knight on horseback rushed at Reto, but the horses suddenly went out of control, and the noble himself asked what was happening, but no one knew the answer. Reto only said to calm down and allow him to heal the hand. Instead, the noble called the gladiator Maris, and promised to forgive him only if he punished these insolent ones. The gladiator was preparing for battle, and Reto, sighing, thought that he did not want this, and asked Lilith to step back. Maris launched into an attack, striking one blow after another, but the boy easily dodged each one. Reto moved so effortlessly that he didn't even strain, as if he were playing. He recalled that in the Adventurers Guild, the title B-rank gladiator was given only to the most brutal, and Maris was exactly that. His technique was called absolute domain. Thousands of deadly strikes that left behind only bodies and blood, so he was nicknamed the Bloody Altar. The nobleman shouted excitedly that Reto's end had come, and soon he would turn into a bloody mess. The boy, however, thought that this gladiator was too weak. He knew that if he struck seriously, the gladiator would simply die, and even despite Maris's quick reaction, the risk remained. Suddenly Reto stumbled and fell, and the gladiator, grinning predatory, was already winding up for the decisive blow. But unexpectedly his jaw hit the blade of Reto's sword, and Maris lost consciousness. The stunned nobleman asked what had happened and heard from the doctor that he only saw the gladiator crash into the peasant's scabbard. Reto lifted the body and threw it straight at the nobleman. He coldly ordered the doctor to take Maris and the lord to the infirmary, as if giving an ordinary everyday command. Reto ordered to tell the nobleman that this girl is his dear comrade, and if he dares to touch her even once more, death will catch him without any warnings. Lilith clung tightly to his hand, pressing against him, and the boy sighed, saying that walking like this was even harder. But she only smiled, reminding him that he himself admitted she was the dearest. So now he cannot escape his words. She emphasized that she understood the true meaning of his ring, while he was just ashamed to admit it. Reto confessed that he had no idea that the slave mark would create such serious problems for them. He said that now their task was to remove her slave seal mark, and for that they needed to go to the guild. Lilith thought that if he became her master, she would be his property, and this bond would become even deeper. But the boy impatiently asked if she was listening. Together they stopped to admire the view of the city, which spread before them in a majestic panorama. Reto explained that this city was the Oceanic Tower, also known as the City of Merchants, and they had come here all the way from Sabah. He noted that they had 3 goals: to find the guild and remove the seal, to rest well and level up, and the third matter was not so important, so he suggested focusing first on the first 2. He reassured Lilith, promising that he would never leave her alone again, no matter what happened. At the guild, he shouted angrily that 10 gold coins for removing the seal was mockery, since the price should be only 1 or 2 coins. But the worker coldly explained that for such a girl with a highest quality seal, the price was always different. Reto sighed heavily, admitting that life was pure pain, and the woman from the guild replied that even with money, a commoner had no right to redeem this girl without a respectable guarantor. She offered to return Lilith to the association for a reward, and even to give him another slave, but Reto refused indignantly and left the guild together with Lilith. The woman saw them off with a quote from Romeo and Juliet, muttering that this girl had too many hopes, and mentally disdainfully called her spoiled. At the inn Eastern Sun, the waitress brought them food and drink, and Reto sadly admitted that he had no money at all. Lilith reminded him about the gold from the Dragon King, but the young man said he had already tried to exchange it. It ended with him almost being hanged because such an amount of gold looked too suspicious for a peasant. He counted only 2 gold coins on himself and asked how much she had. Lilith replied that she had only 5 silver coins, so both were upset and decided they would have to earn money on their own. Reto said that there was always work in this city and they were in no hurry, but suddenly he heard someone nearby loudly discussing strange deaths. A man at the neighboring table was telling that another dead body was found near the brothel, and the death was terrible, as always. Reto quietly told Lilith that these people were disgusting and wanted to leave, but he heard that the dead were fugitives carrying slave seals, and his attention immediately sharpened. The man explained that the seals had a peculiarity. Their magic becomes unstable over time, and eventually the carrier's brain simply explodes, so carrying such a mark was a deadly risk. Reto sharply approached the man and demanded to tell everything he knew. The stunned storyteller only asked who he was. At the hotel, Reto was already weighing what he had heard in his mind and realized that Lilith's seal was a real time bomb. He understood that the seal had an expiration date. If the slave did not receive mana from the master within 10 to 15 years, the seal began to self-destruct. But when it disappeared completely, the carrier's brain burned out. Bones and nerves were torn to pieces. The pain became unbearable, and the only end was death in terrible agony. Reto remembered that 10 years ago, bandits attacked a cart with illegal goods, among which there were many seal carriers, and now they are dying one by one a terrible death. Lilith confessed that about a month ago, her seal had shrunk. Reto realized that this was a sign. After this, only a few weeks and sometimes days remain. He decided at all costs to obtain her ownership right to transfer his mana to her, and even thought about kidnapping a merchant. But suddenly Lilith loudly called him by name. She said that he should focus on the main thing, since she was still alive, and this relieved his tension. He admitted that they had about a month, and explained that now they urgently needed to earn money, and they would have to work many times harder than planned. When they came to the guild again, the girl said confusedly that it was impossible, but Reto shouted demanding to answer where he could get money then. She explained that for registration one must be at least 12 years old and have a guardian, since adventurers often bring younger brothers or sisters with them, and then they are also entered into the guild lists. The girl noted that it was visible from their faces. They would work even under the threat of death, but still she asked how such people could be accepted into the guild, since here they do not allow people to be thrown to death just like that. Lilith wanted to ask a question. Lilith inquired whether it was possible to join if you have a guardian. The administrator replied that yes, but admitted, without rare skills or special abilities, they would hardly be welcomed. Then Lilith solemnly declared that she had a rare skill inventory of the maximum level, and asked the adventurers if anyone wanted to join their team. Everyone was silent, and Lilith begged at least one to respond. Finally, a man from the tavern skeptically asked if she was really serious. 2 men declared that they would help them, and addressed the administrator to allow registration. She agreed and promised to prepare the form immediately. Reto looked at them suspiciously and asked why they decided to help. They replied that they just thought, children in despair. Then one leaned over and whispered that he heard about the murders at the inn from them themselves. He bitterly exclaimed that it was only a joke, since they just wanted to use her abilities. In the end, all the money stayed with them, and nothing was left for the slaves. The long-haired man brazenly declared that they did not need anything for free. They only desired this small and sweet girl. He ordered Reto to wait until he was registered, and Lilith to go with him. Lilith suddenly twisted his arm and shouted for them to immediately let go. His partner got angry, indignantly asking how she dared to do that. Lilith began to cast a spell, and the man exclaimed in fear that this could not be, for she dared to create such a curse right inside the building. Reto noticed with horror how veins were already appearing on her face. He recalled that serious fights between adventurers are strictly forbidden by the guild. The boy realized that in such a case she would be thrown into prison, which would complicate their chances of making money, so he decided that he could not allow Lilith to kill someone over such nonsense. Lilith felt with horror how her magic suddenly weakened and dissolved. She asked embarrassedly what had happened to her charms, and Reto also did not understand why her magic had disappeared. The man lunged at her, shouting that she annoyed him too much, and declared that he would not let go now. He drew a sword and prepared to strike. Reito sharply attacked him and shouted to stop immediately. He strictly reminded them that they were in a guild, and therefore such actions were unacceptable. With one strike from him, the opponent fainted, and the partner stared in shock as Reito did it with one hand. The boy approached the administrator and asked her to register them, appointing him as the group leader. She agreed and said she would call them later when everything was ready. The man with an eye patch told Reito and Lilith not to worry and to do what they had planned, as they had already proven their strength. Reito thanked him, and he introduced himself as Gilmanus and added that he was known by the name Noble Sage. Gilmanus admitted that he helped only so that they would owe him, because he considered himself on the same level as them. Reito, however, thought to himself whether this man was stronger than him. The boy even guessed that Gilmanus might also be reincarnated, like him. At that moment, the administrator thanked them for waiting, calling him a rank B mage, but he shouted that he was the Noble Sage, as he had said. One adventurer noted that it was rare to meet a B rank, and told Reito that they were recognized by a truly cool guy. Gilmanus only smiled and replied that strong people always gravitate towards each other, and added that he was sure their paths would cross again. After that, he said goodbye. Reito and Lilith approached the guild quest board, and the boy noticed that the other adventurers were watching them attentively. He explained that not only attack and defense were important, but also the ability to anticipate the enemy's intentions and prevent them from acting. However, this approach was not always possible, so it was worth preparing other options as well. He said that any experience could be used as a lesson, and suggested that Lilith become stronger together. The girl herself was pondering how she could have lost to such a man. Reito admitted that they still had not found a good way to earn money. He saw several B-rank quests with rewards of 5 or more silver coins, as well as one C-rank quest with a reward of 8. He realized that beginners were at most eligible for E-rank quests, and without achievements, they would not be able to get higher-level quests unless they joined a group of stronger adventurers. Lilith noted that even the hardest tasks of level E boiled down to frying French fries for 12 coppers, and even then, no one would buy them without a guarantee. Reito pointed to the adventurer's bulletin board and suggested trying a task similar to one of those posted there. Lilith read that it was a gathering quest. The boy said that such a task was suitable for them. He recalled that the rainbow fruit is called the sweet gem of nature, and although the trees grow in the wild, it was believed that they could not be cultivated. Even with his skills, it would be difficult. Lilith asked if he didn't think the reward was too large for this level, since they promised a whole silver coin for one fruit. She suggested that the task level is determined by danger, and Reito agreed, explaining that although the tree is not rare, finding the fruit is a real miracle. Raijuto stated that a peasant like him, level 342, possesses the necessary skill for such cases. The next morning they reached the foothills of the city of Tarif to obtain the rainbow fruit. The boy announced that they were on site and suggested Lilith rest and have a snack. Lilith took out a piece of black bread with mold and looked at it with disgust. Reito asked if she was really going to eat it, but the girl replied that it was already inedible. Reito said that as long as it is chewed, it is good, because that way they would save money. Lilith asked why he bought so much soap in a bucket, and the boy replied that it was necessary. He explained that his maximum level spatial wallet holds a lot of soapy water, and it is extremely convenient. Raijuto solemnly announced that soapy water is the key to level growth. Lilith, surprised, reminded him that they were supposed to look for the rainbow fruit, but the boy said they were looking for another important thing. He activated the skill Crop Cultivation. Simple superficial overview. Looking around, he focused and asked Lilith to wait. Using enhanced physical abilities, sharp senses, hawk's eye, and present sensitivity, he immediately detected the fruits. The boy quickly gathered the fruits and noted that the rainbow fruits are indeed easy to spot among the trees, which is why animals always rush here as soon as they start ripening. Lilith watched as he worked quickly throughout the forest. After 2 hours, Reito returned with a full bucket, delighted to have gathered such a rare harvest. Lilith counted the fruits and said that it would be enough for a whole gold coin. Reito sadly admitted that he couldn't find the second item and suggested stopping. At that moment, they heard strange sounds and saw several monsters running out of the forest. Reito guessed that the smell of the fruits attracted them, and added that monsters are rarely encountered in this area. He suggested Lilith try to defeat them herself. Lilith agreed and used her magic to destroy the enemies. Reito finished off the last goblin with his own sword and asked if Lilith had exhausted all her mana. The girl was standing, leaning on her staff, completely exhausted. The boy asked if it hurt her when she had no mana left, and using the Ring of Night, he transferred his mana to her. He also asked if she understood her mistake in battle. He sternly remarked that she was too reckless using large-scale spells against unknown enemies, as it is easy to become exhausted and be left alone. Reito added that she wouldn't be able to escape anyway, and besides, her level is still too low. Lilith was upset, and he gently stroked her head, saying that in time she would be able to learn high-level magic. The girl replied that she had no rare skills, only basic spells. The boy confidently said that she should do what she can, because he is counting on her. When he was watching the upset Lilith, he suddenly felt something and sharply turned around. The girl anxiously asked what happened, and Reito exclaimed that it was a jackpot. Huge monsters appeared before them. Lilith asked if it was an insect and made them invisible, hiding even the smell and sounds. Reito replied that it was a mutant, a rabid water measurer, exactly the prey he had mentioned. He explained that they use camouflage skills and blend in with the lake, and admitted that her abilities are unlikely to help in a fight against such creatures. Ryuto and Lilith place a stone filled with his power as bait. He says they found these monsters only thanks to her. Lilith wonders if these insects could be useful. The boy shows his scar and warns that they are very dangerous, and recklessness is costly. He admits that he met such creatures 6 months ago. He explains that their defense is extremely strong. Physical blows are powerless, and magic does not work because they impose their own barrier that lasts for weeks. Ryuto claims that these creatures are even stronger than the evil dragon, but they rarely come out of the water, so they are considered harmless. He adds that he heard, victory over them gives a whole sea of experience, and it was then that a brilliant idea came to his mind on how to destroy them with one blow. He shouts Lilith to act. She opens the inventory completely and pours out all the soapy water. The boy shouts that the time has come and orders to finish them off. Lilith uses magic and destroys all the monsters. She admits that everything turned out surprisingly simple. Ryuto smiles and reminds that this is exactly what he said. The young man explains, oil and water do not mix, and the insect legs had a special coating that allowed them to stand on the surface. But the soap destroyed the support and removed the barrier. Ryuto thinks that it was not for nothing that he once saw something similar in his world, as it became his reliable weapon here. He realizes that technically they fed an entire swarm of rank monsters. But that is why Lilith's level will sharply increase. Ryuto lifts the bag and says that for 7 rainbow fruits and a little more potatoes they received a gold coin, 5 silver, and 20 copper coins. He admits that this is a good reward for one day. Lilith clarifies that now the fruit-gathering quest is closed, as everything is completed. Ryuto says that this is exactly what he expected. Recognition for rare trophies. The girl asks why she has been seeing his aura for a long time, and even in a changed form. Reito wants to answer, but a man suddenly grabs his clothes and says that he finally found them. The man explains that he knows the aura of everyone in this city, so it was easy to identify strangers. The boy thought he just allowed him to find him. He mocks, asking if he thought he could just leave after breaking his nose and his partner's arm. Ryuto wonders if they were healed with healing magic. Lilith squeezes his hand, feeling fear. The man says he does not want to ruin his reputation before the guild, so he prepared another opponent for them. He shouts, summoning a master bodyguard. Ryuto realizes that they themselves will not fight. The gladiator introduces himself. His name is Marissa, he is a level B gladiator, and declares that their adventures here will end. Then, seeing Reito, he suddenly bows and apologizes for his rudeness. He says he is grateful for his mercy and satisfied, promising never to forget it. Ryuto thinks that this is indeed worthy behavior of a level B warrior. The adventurers ask him in surprise why he does not keep his promise to beat them, since they paid well. Marissa explodes with anger, asking how they could think he would sell his honor for dirty money. He apologizes again to Reito and promises to punish the insolent ones. Reito says that this is karma. He explains, by meeting someone, a person creates karma. Hatred or resentment gives birth to new karma, and even the death of an enemy does not save from its burden. He emphasizes that it is difficult to free oneself from karma, so one must always be ready to answer for their own actions. Lilith reflects that if this is true, then their fates are truly intertwined and breaking them is not so simple. The next day, a strange girl approaches Reito, saying that his aura told her she can talk to him at any time. The boy invites her to sit at their table and mentally feels that today they are in for a jackpot. He asks what she wants. She replies that she wants to offer them a task to collect mandrake. The reward varies, but she is ready to pay 10 gold coins. Lilith asks to wait and explains that mandrake is a level B material, so for level F adventurers it is beyond their ability. She adds that 100 grams in the shop costs only a silver coin, so this is a suspicious order. The client says that the quest is designed for 1 person, so for 2 it will be ideal. She claims that the price of mandrake is rising, and she needs to get it as soon as possible. She asks Reto if speed also matters to him. The boy thinks that this jackpot. She says she heard. There is a peasant who completed 7 fruit-gathering quests, twice defeated a level B gladiator, and now desperately seeks money to free his friend. She says that she heard. There is a peasant who completed 7 fruit-gathering quests, twice defeated a level B gladiator, and now desperately seeks money to free his friend. She explains that the lady before him is actually a senior professor of the Magic Academy and the best alchemist. This is a task from the university, so they have nothing to worry about. She adds that she will also tell how the peasant can redeem the servant if he agrees to gather mandrake. Reto notes that he has never heard of a high demand for mandrake. He knows it is an important ingredient for restorative potions, and supplies have always been sufficient. He understands that even if it were rare, it would have long been actively cultivated, since it is a common herb that is not deadly by itself. The girl admits that this is now a secret, but due to an unknown disease, all mandrake supplies have perished. She suggests that this is a sign of a great catastrophe. Some were processed and put on the market, but it is not enough. Reto guesses that live specimens still remain near the city. She confirms his thought but warns, the place is dangerous. Mandrakes grow near the Arrakis volcano, and before it is a forest full of basilisks. She says they will join the group. The man adds that it is the A-rank clan Hakuno, and asks Reto and Lilith not to delay. They are surrounded by a pack of basilisks, and Reto realizes that they are too numerous and much larger than usual. He freezes, feeling something bad. Lilith asks what troubles him. Reto replies that ahead he senses a much stronger and more dangerous monster. He says he will go first, check the situation, and if possible, try to kill him. He leaves these monsters to Lilith, hoping she can handle it herself. He steps back and shouts that he is going on reconnaissance. Someone from the group mocks him, calling him a coward. The team encounters a huge monster. One of the warriors shouts that this is a joke because such creatures do not exist in this forest. Another asks if it is a manticore. Meanwhile, Raijudo fends off other beasts. One warrior urges everyone to calm down, since they have a level B mage with them. Then a scream is heard. The mage has fled. His comrades shout in fear that it is time for them to run too. One of them grabs Lilith and throws her forward, suggesting to leave her as bait. The squad captain shouts at him, asking how he dares to act like that. But he snaps back that he does not remember being voted as leader. The manticore lunges at Lilith. She responds with a magical attack, but realizes with horror that her spells do not leave a single scratch. The captain stands before her, shielding her from the blow. He shouts that he will hold back the monster, and she must escape in the meantime. Lilith resolutely declares that she will not run because she can fight too. He agrees and says that together they can win. But the monster instantly destroys the captain, and Lilith freezes in despair, asking herself why she is so weak. The manticore lunges at her, but at the last moment, Reto appears before her with a sword and easily slashes the beast. He hugs Lilith, glad that she is safe, and says that she did well. Then he asks why she did not run away as he asked. He addresses the captain, thanking him for defending Lilith. The stunned man asks who he is. Already at the inn, Reto wonders why he is kneeling. The captain replies that unnecessary words are not needed here, and he guesses everything himself. He says that they are travelers forced to hide their real names after misfortunes. Reto decides that this explanation is enough. The man assures that he will tell no one, and is always ready to help. He addresses Lilith and asks if she is a novice adventurer, advises not to get involved in problems due to excessive zeal, and hints to Reto that he understands everything himself. The next morning, Reto tells Lilith that this is exactly why they will continue to raise her level today, which is even higher than he initially imagined, and asks the girl why she thinks so. He squeezes the basilisk and shouts Lilith to immediately strike him with the strongest spell. Lilith hesitates, but Reto shouts that otherwise the monster will die without her experience. She closes her eyes and casts Thunderstrike. Reto shouts that the monster is still alive and orders to strike again. She casts the spell 3 more times. Finally, he announces that after all these blows, the basilisk has fallen and suggests returning. Lilith strikes him with lightning and angrily asks if he realizes that she is irritated. She mumbles something about the heroine and the gifted ring. She continues casting spells, and Reto asks her to stop. He shouts, asking if she enjoys tormenting him. Lilith marvels at the strange feeling inside, while Reto is glad that her mana is finally running out. He recalls how they together finished off basilisks until evening, and Lilith's level jumped incredibly. After everything, they reach the place where the mandrake was supposed to grow. Reto doubts it, as it is a wasteland here. The captain says the soil is too dry and the mandrake would not survive. Reto objects. He feels life underground and orders the captain to take Lilith to the city and inform the sorceress that the quest will be completed in a few days. In 2 weeks, Reito brings a sack and says this is the mandrake she ordered. He explains that he found viable seeds and, using farming skills, grew a crop, although it took time. The girl takes out the roots and is amazed. She says the academy will not be able to pay for this. She explains that she did not mean we won't buy it, but that this is not an ordinary mandrake at all. She asks if he is really ready to give it to her and not betray the deal. Reito only insists, take it or not. She promises to personally write his name into the academy's history because he grew one of the rarest types of mandrake, enough for a breakthrough in medicine. She says she was supposed to give 100 gold coins, but now will give a silver ingot, 5 gold coins tomorrow, and the rest later. Reito demands payment immediately, or he will sell to others. She reminds that such things are needed only by the best researchers, and asks if he knows anyone like that. She hints that without her he won't solve the problem. At that moment, a man appears and says he finally found him. He insists that he has been looking for him for a long time. Reito ignores him, but the man offers a reward for the quest and adds extra. Reito counts and sees 15 gold coins. The man says those monsters at the lake were classified as A-level, and everyone asked if it's true that he killed them himself. He admits that he took credit for this glory. He is ashamed because he stole his merit. Reito grabs him by the shoulders and asks if he is interested in money. He explains that it's better if the attention is on him while he stays in the shadows. The issue is resolved after a conversation between the sorceress and the slave trader, and Reito buys Lilith. They set off to the casino city of Wismel, located on the border between the human and demonic worlds, where lawlessness reigns and everything is allowed for money. The arena announcer declares the fight. The most promising newcomer has challenged the reigning champion. He describes how the champion won the first round with 1 blow, shattered the opponent's weapon in the second, and remained cold-blooded among the crowd. The newcomer decides that if this is their best fighter, he will quickly deal with him and return to the border. The announcer introduces the legendary warrior, the silver-haired magical swordswoman Ellen McBeat, who once surpassed even the S-level. Ellen lies on the ground with her hands and feet tied, while the announcer solemnly declares the start of the fight. Orsted shouts to the judge, asking what kind of joke this is, but he is told that this is no joke. Before him stands the reigning arena champion. Ellen explains that she gave him a handicap because she did not want to fight on equal terms right away. She mockingly asks if he is scared. Orsted attacks, but Ellen dodges lightning fast, and the young man realizes that her speed is incredible. He rains blows, but she dodges each one as if reading his moves in advance. Ellen says she will show him how to strike quickly and accurately, and immediately inflicts several slashing wounds on him. Orsted drops his weapon from his hands. Ellen says she had hoped for a hero but got a shameful defeat. He raises his hands and admits defeat, but Ellen attacks again, reproaching him that it looks like a plea for death. The girl with the teddy bear asks Ellen to spare him because he might become stronger, and offers to fight her instead. Ellen exclaims that even Marin Onyx from the demonic world, who practices forbidden magic, has come here. The spectators whisper fearfully. Ellen shrugs and says she will manage without a fight with her, as she does not consider her a worthy opponent. The judge announces Champion Esther as the winner. Ellen breaks the chains and the girl says she met a funny guy, an ordinary peasant. Ellen does not believe that such a person could have attracted Marin's attention, but she does not care. She believes in their inevitable meeting. Marin says that this peasant is heading to the Tower of the Eastern Sun, a sacred land where heroes are tested with a holy sword. She adds that he is not interested in the sword. He seeks to reach what is hidden beyond it. Ellen laughs and says that it would be rude not to greet such a cheeky fellow. Meanwhile, a girl meditates in a dark cave. She realizes that she has failed again, cannot concentrate, and loses track of time. Cordelia reflects that she stayed here to find herself and understand her own destiny. She recalls the shameful defeat by the evil dragon and how she was saved by a simple peasant. She admits that she lacks determination. Cordelia remembers that Orsted became an S-rank adventurer at 15. Other heroes have already gained fame, and she remained at level B. She understands that Reito saved her twice, and this spoiled her, depriving her of the desire to fight. The old man explains that Mana Berserker is a state when a person reveals their full potential. He says that she faces a dangerous trial that will make her a berserker, rejected by society, and give her power beyond limits. He calls this trial the Devil's Rebirth. The old man says that the true meaning of this state is the desire to survive. For only at the edge of life does unreachable power open up. He warns that at this moment the soul may be left behind, and then she will become a walking corpse, doomed by her own madness. He advises entering consciousness and reviving everything you hide there until you accept every part of yourself. Cordelia sees herself screaming that she is ready to do anything for money, confessing feelings for Reito, and exploding with anger. She asks herself if all these ugly images are parts of her essence. She is overwhelmed with disgust, but deep in her soul she understands that she must accept them all. Cordelia prepares for battle and calls all her shadows to her, declaring that she will make them understand her will. She throws herself into a fight against her own parts. She asks with bitter irony if fighting is the true path to acceptance. She calls it barbarism, and briefly wonders if everything could be settled peacefully. But Cordelia raises her sword again and shouts that she will never lose to these dark reflections of herself. Her strikes fall relentlessly. Little Cordelia smiles and asks if she is satisfied with this senseless performance. She reminds that this is about the darkness that has always lived in her heart. Cordelia cuts off the head of this ghostly reflection and exclaims that she will never return to the miserable past self again. She steps out of her own consciousness and sees a girl kneeling before her. The elder says that she managed to break through and cast aside desire, therefore she has passed the trial of devilish rebirth. The man advises her to head to the Tower of the Eastern Sun and prove what she is capable of after rebirth. Lilith stands at the edge of a cliff when a giant flying beast lunges at her from the sky. Raijuto beheads it and jokes that dinner with the wyvern is ready. He praises Lilith, saying now there is no monster she cannot defeat. She complains that her level no longer increases. The boy looks at her stats and concludes that this is the limit of experience she can gain from monsters of the human continent. He announces that it is time to move on to the third goal and reminds her of the 3 tasks, leaving the third still unspoken. Lilith asks about the Tower of the Eastern Sun. Raijuto explains that it is a dungeon that opens only once a year, and it is there that the Holy Sword is kept, located not far from their current location. Lilith doubts, asking if the real goal is the sword, and if they want to leave Cordelia weak. The boy denies this, stating that their goal is completely different. He says that in the tower there is a secret place, ideal for their training, a little beyond the pedestal with the Holy Sword. Reito suggests she find out the details herself. He adds that they have nothing more to do in the city. They have earned enough money, and the elders have already decided to accept them into rank A. They are strolling through the streets when the boy feels pursued and is overcome with anger. He orders Lilith to return to the hotel immediately, while he distracts those who were following, promising to return soon. Lilith is upset to be left alone. She heads to the hotel and thinks that this city has awakened curiosity in her. But even if everything will be brief, now she will not allow herself to lose. She wanders through to the market. Lilith passes by a thieves' shop where stolen and counterfeit items are sold. She is amazed by the number of books and grimoires. Looking closely, she notices that most of them are fakes and realizes that her high level will not allow her to be deceived. She takes several grimoires in her hands and carefully examines the pages. But soon she sighs in disappointment, as all of them turned out to be fake. She feels sorry that a genuine book is so hard to find. However, she admits that even the very touch of a book brings her joy. Even if it is a copy, it still smells of paper and gives a feeling of warmth. 2 suspicious men approach her, asking if she is lost and warning that this is a dangerous place. Lilith sharply twists one of their arms, and his partner screams in outrage. She decides that she has stayed here too long and it is not worth showing her true skills. But suddenly she is pierced by a sharp pain in the heart area, and she stops, losing her balance. The girl realizes that all possible weakening effects have been cast on her. Dispersion, cancellation of spells, and even anti-magic. She does not understand when exactly they managed to do this. Lilith looks around and notices she is surrounded on all sides. She counts at least 4 rank C sorcerers, and about a dozen ordinary bandits, and this number makes her clench her fists. She lunges at the bandits and decides that magic is unnecessary here. Her own hands are enough against them, and in close combat she confidently repels their attacks. Gladiator strikes Lilith. He and his associates mock that although she has become stronger since their last meeting, she still will not defeat them. The nobleman sneers that even in 100 years she will not succeed. He grabs her by the head and mockingly asks if she remembers him. The sorcerer casts a binding spell on her, and the nobleman adds that now it will be interesting to see how she wriggles out of it. The nobleman says in a sweet voice that he can forgive all her sins if she stays with him. He clarifies that it is not such a bad idea at all. Lilith understands that she believed too much in her own strength, but the truth is that she is still powerless. Ryuto suddenly appears, and the binding spell falls off Lilith. She immediately lunges at the nobleman, deciding that he will be the first to pay. She screams that she will turn him into fertilizer for the earth. The nobleman orders his men to kill her in response. The gladiator suddenly informs Godson-sama that he cannot move. The nobleman asks in horror where these grapevines came from, and why his men did not deal with this peasant. Someone tentatively suggests that they were defeated. The nobleman orders the sorcerer to break the spell, but he has already fled. Ryuto approaches closer and coldly declares that he will not kill him, but will break him so that he will never rise again. Ryuto addresses Lilith and apologizes, saying that it was his wrong decision that led her into this trap. But the girl replies that it is not his fault, but only hers. She says she has become stronger, and Ryuto agrees, emphasizing that she managed to break the level B curse. He adds that he does not want to burden her with too much weight. The boy declares that now everything will depend only on her determination. If she does not become stronger, he will leave her alone in the dragon village. Lilith in despair begs him not to speak like that, promising that she will definitely become stronger. She firmly takes his hand. Meanwhile, the city is preparing to welcome guests. Merchants are preparing souvenirs because the hero from the north, Lady Cordelia, has decided to challenge the Tower of the Eastern Sun. The whole city is celebrating. Even the horses are decorated with flowers. Lilith is enjoying street food, and a notice about today's duel of the hero with the holy sword appears in the square. Lilith sits in the arena stands, impatiently waiting to see the heroine's strength. Men around discuss that the high priest disappeared because he was found unconscious in the city of thieves, and there was even an attempt on him there. The previous night, Ryuto looks at the tower through a spyglass and explains to Lilith that once the Tower of the Eastern Sun was a shop of rare armor for heroes. But instead of strengthening authority, the kings of various states turned it into a labyrinth of traps and trials. Ryuto explains that now this tower is a dungeon attraction, created more for tourists than for real heroes. The heroes' relics remain inaccessible, but the entrance is open thanks to a collective agreement between countries and the absence of church influence. He adds that that is why people like them can go inside if they have tickets. So instead of an official trial of the hero, they will go to their own goal through this path. Lilith recalls that he had already hinted at this earlier. She doubts whether it is possible to become stronger in a dungeon created for entertainment and asks why they are sitting on the roof. Ryuto hands her the pipe and points to the room with a balcony where a fire is burning. He asks her to use her long-distance vision skill. Lilith looks closely and says she sees many soft toys on the bed. Ryuto awkwardly says this is not the room, asks to look in the next one. She sees strange objects there and asks what they are. The boy replies that they are exercise machines. Lilith does not understand what it means and asks again. Ryuto thinks about how to explain bodybuilding in a world where such things do not exist. He explains that physical strength is determined by status, just like work, level, skill, or titles. According to him, development in the profession and advancement always lead to an increase in strength. Ryuto reflects that despite this, physical training remains one of the oldest methods of development, although bodybuilding is considered a feudal and secondary activity here. Lilith wonders why this hero wastes time on such a pointless training. Ryuto asks her to look into the far left room where no candle is burning. She watches closely and sees the girl talking to herself, standing naked in front of the mirror. Ryuto explains that this is part of the devil transformation training. The boy says that Cordelia is now on the verge of self-destruction, trying to keep her mind while her berserker state tests her will. In her trial, Cordelia encounters evil, the dragon Amanda. But she wonders why this time she embodied her in exactly this form. Amanda guesses that it is easier for her to provoke hatred and asks if it is true. Cordelia, however, shouts that all her comrades are dead and the blame lies with her. Suddenly, the squad commander appears before her, admitting that he is also to blame for their death because he could not protect either the heroine or his warriors. He tells her to forgive them, for they fought side by side and entrusted their lives to her. Beheaded knights appear around Cordelia. They beg for forgiveness, saying that they would even bow, but they have no heads. The heroine admits that it is her fault that they died, and therefore she must also die. Die worthless. Lilith watches this scene with regret. Ryuto explains that despite constant torment and headaches, Cordelia continues training, even using such absurd methods to slightly raise her stats. He tells Lilith that even heroes must work hard to become stronger, and it is no easier for them than it is for her. Ryuto recalls how Lilith herself went through many trials to level up, and hopes that seeing Cordelia's determination will make her stronger and more stubborn as well. He realizes that after completing the berserker training, she still did not acquire a true skill. She is stuck at the self-destruction stage, and although she gained frenzied rage, she cannot fully control it. Ryuto understands that he is also to blame. By saving her every time, he prevented her from achieving true strength, and now because of him, she is forced to spend energy on this painful path. Lilith suddenly asks who Cordelia is to him. The boy is surprised, but eventually just smiles sadly and answers. Meanwhile, in the grand arena, the announcer thanks the audience for their patience and solemnly announces the entrance of the hero of the North, Cordelia Alston, as well as Arson Bragg, the owner of the Empire's sacred sword. The arena master raises his hand, preparing to give the signal, and the announcer warns the crowd that the fight will begin immediately after his sign. Cordelia and Arson stand facing each other. The signal is given, and their blades clash with a dull roar. They attack with such force that the spectators in the stands clutch their hearts in horror and admiration, watching this battle. Arson strikes with his magical sword, but Cordelia skillfully dodges each of his attacks. He raises his sword for a new strike, but this time she meets his thrusts with her own blade. Lilith in the crowd watches with her mouth agape. The opponent attacks with closed eyes, and the girl is forced to retreat. But suddenly she lunges forward and counterattacks. Her sword cuts a lock of his hair. Arson laughs in amazement and admits he did not expect this from anyone but Western heroes. Cordelia confesses she is surprised, as her head is still on her shoulders. She says anxiously that she has no idea how to defeat such an opponent. Arson replies calmly, as long as she thinks that way, he has nothing to fear. Let her take it as experience and training, and maybe someday she will be able to match him. Suddenly, a dark aura flares around Cordelia. She declares that she will defeat him here and now, because her true target is a stronger enemy, and she cannot afford to lose. Arson notices her pupils have taken on a bloody hue. He guesses she has fallen into a state of madness and solemnly says that as a mentor he is obliged to stop her by force. Cordelia flies into a rage, but Arson remains completely calm. In the crowd, the girl is so shocked by the spectacle that she does not notice her ice cream falling. Cordelia strikes, and the ice cream scoop shatters on the floor. At that moment, Arson drops to his knees before the heroine, and to everyone's surprise admits his defeat. When Cordelia helps him up and their hands clasp in a handshake, the announcer declares the victory of the northern heroine. He calls on the audience to applaud both, as they have given an incredible duel. Lilith makes her way through the crowd, leaving the arena. She regretfully realizes that she didn't even see their final blows. She reflects on how she always considered Ryuto the only genius nearby, and about this heroine she was certain she would overcome everything on her own. And she understands that she was too overconfident. Lilith thinks that they live in different worlds, and no matter how hard she tries, she will always remain behind. The girl's eyes fill with tears. She realizes that she will never become strong enough to surpass this heroine. Finally, Ryuto knocks on her door and asks if she is still awake. Lilith, without opening, quietly replies that she is. He says that he wanted to tell her something about the Tower of the Eastern Sun. Sitting under the blanket, Lilith admits that she is thinking of returning to the Dragon Village. Ryuto replies that he understands, but suggests talking about it tomorrow. He says she is tired, so he will leave food by the door and wishes her good night. She responds the same way. The boy is already leaving but turns back once more, reminding her to brush her teeth before bed. Lilith silently agrees. Descending the stairs, he decides to rent another room. He thinks that Lilith has become too attached to him, and he himself has only been taking advantage of her dependence. Ryuto recalls how he told Lilith that Cordelia is very dear to him. He regrets expressing himself so poorly, and now sits on the hotel roof, looking at the night sky. Meanwhile, the captain of the A-rank group approaches the ticket counter and asks for 3 tickets to the tower, 1 adult and 2 children's. He jokes whether it would be cheaper to take the family package and agrees. Next to him, Reito and the depressed Lilith are waiting for their tickets. They enter the tower. Ryuto recalls that after their conversation he decided to take Lilith there no matter what, and so they had to buy regular tickets because foreigners are not allowed in here without them. The old man shows the map and says that even the trap locations are marked there. He adds that this map was left to him by his grandfather, a former hero, so the information is reliable. Ryuto thinks that this old man really managed to persuade Lilith to come here. He thanks him with a look. They climb the stairs. The man says the entrance to the dungeon is behind the door. The first trial is called Invisible Trap, a huge hall filled to the brim with traps. The old man opens the door and warns that arrows will fly immediately and the floor will ignite. To escape, a magical barrier must be created. Arrows really rain down, but Lilith instantly stops them with a spell. Ryuto raises 1 arrow and notices that it is enchanted with erasure. He praises Lilith for slow but correct magic. The man wonders, this was not on the map. Ryuto senses dangers and throws an arrow at the floor. But it turns out to be a trap. A pit with spikes opens, and the man who was walking ahead falls into it. The boy says that he died, and it was a false floor. The old man exclaims that it cannot be so, because all the traps with floors were supposed to be only at the bottom of the tower. Lilith notices that Ryuto is terribly angry and wonders why. The boy breaks arrows in his hands and realizes this is preparation for Cordelia's trial. He activates the skill Surface Scan and carefully scans the hall. He asks for the map, carefully compares it with the scheme of the Tower of Dawn, and then returns it to the owner. Ryuto says that most of the traps are already marked, except for one, on the ceiling. He pours seeds on the floor and says that now everything will be simple. The boy activates the skill Agricultural Cultivation. and the seeds instantly sprout, revealing hidden mechanisms. The old man looks impressed, and Ryuto explains that the traps will only delay them briefly. He orders to move on. They climb long stairs and enter a new hall. The old man says that the next trial is called the one that blocks the way, and there awaits a golem, almost invulnerable. The golem rushes at them, and everyone manages to dodge. Ryuto suggests tearing it to pieces and moving higher, but the old man grabs Lilith by the hand and pulls her away. Ryuto tries to break the golem's armor with his sword, but in vain. He realizes that it is no lower than S rank. The boy shouts that he will take the golem on himself and orders the others to find an exit. The man points to the door and says there should be stairs there. They run to the entrance, but it turns out to be locked. On the other side of the door stands Eslan. She thinks with satisfaction about how she broke the mechanism so that the gates would not open until the golem is defeated. She waits to see what this peasant will do now. Suddenly a deafening roar sounds, and the whole tower begins to shake. Cracks appear in the walls from powerful blows. Eslan freezes as the doors open, and a huge stone flies at her. Exhausted but ominously confident, Ryuto points at her and says that she is the one who increased the difficulty of this trial. Eslan wonders how he managed all the traps so quickly. The boy replies that he shortened the path, destroyed the traps, and got here. She asks if he wants to destroy the tower itself. Ryuto laughs coldly. Is a person really capable of that? He adds that it is worth starting with the fact that the tower does not exist at all. He asks if she knows why this structure is called the Tower of Dawn, explaining that most of the time it exists in another dimension and appears here only briefly as a repository for artifacts. The boy reveals the truth. In the tower, which was long ago turned into a trial for heroes, the demon sword is hidden, created as a pair to the sacred sword. He admits that he is not sure if it was the sacred sword that sealed the demon, and explains, "This tower is only the shadow of the demon sword, the embodiment of its power." Eslan admits that she cannot deceive him because he knows too much. She recalls that there is another person standing behind the door. Ryuto suddenly realizes that he cannot move. He guesses. It is the work of that girl with the knife. She enters the hall and mockingly suggests he try to rush to the door before it closes. She adds that he is unlikely to be able to move for the next half day. The boy removes the spell from himself, realizing that she even casts paralysis with magic. He sees that the man and Lilith are still bound by spells. He closes his eyes with regret to avoid looking at them and enters the hall alone. Ahead opens a spacious hall where Eslan is already waiting for him. Behind her back he notices a sword and thinks, "Is this not the demon sword?" She asks if this means there are now two contenders. Ryuto looks back and suddenly sees Lilith entering the hall. He sincerely rejoices at her appearance. But at that very moment Eslan rushes forward. She tries to strike him with a dagger, but the boy deflects the attack with a sword. He is shocked at how quickly she approached. He wonders if this is a unique skill. Eslan says with a smile that he already knows part of the truth, but she will explain the rest herself. She tells, "Whoever touches the sword will have their wish granted in exchange for half their life," and adds that she will use him as a sacrifice. Ryuto lunges into attack, but she disappears again and instantly appears behind him. The wound cuts his back, and she mocks that she likes his style, but his dream will never come true. The boy, overcoming the pain, tries to hit her again, but she disappears and appears in another place. He realizes that this is her true skill. She disappears again, announcing her name, Eslan, the woman who will doom them to death. Lilith shouts his name, worried. Ryuto reassures that everything is going according to plan, and they must continue to act. He lunges at Eslan with a series of strikes, which she parries, responding with her own swift attacks. Ryuto notices that she talks too much about the murder, but does not try to deliver a fatal blow. He concludes, it is intentional. He stands on his hands and shouts so that she can see their true determination. Eslan is surprised by his actions. The boy attacks with his legs, balancing on his hands. He analyzes her power. Is it super acceleration, teleportation, or time stop? But the last two require an excessive amount of mana, and the first and third create a shockwave. He recalls that adventurers who use time stop prefer close-range combat because it gives them an advantage, but if the enemy moves unnaturally, they lose distance. Having thought it all over, he concludes. In battle, Eslan uses precisely super acceleration. Ryuto concludes that the main weakness of super acceleration lies in the need for distance, so there is only one truly effective tactic against it. He notices that Eslan always swings her weapon before the dash, and realizes, it's worth tracking this moment, and he will be able to counterattack. The woman mocks him, asking if he is just pretending. She thinks he naively believes in his own trap, trying to calculate the place and time of her appearance. She rushes in to attack with a scream, "Die!" But suddenly Ryuto knocks her to the floor. Esselin instantly gets up, and Ryuto understands. The plan worked. She is angry that she believed in such a cheap trick, and wonders how he managed to prepare observation magic through the girl. Her hand gets tangled in weeds, and looking around, she sees that there are incredibly many of them around. Ryuto recalls how he planted grass around her, added the skill Simple Surface Survey, and was able to predict her movements. He realizes that it was enough to understand. She does not teleport but uses acceleration. Esselin asks if this whole performance was just so that she wouldn't notice the grass around. She frowns, admitting, "This is bad." She inflicts several cuts on him, and Ryuto is confused. After all, he was sure he dodged. She laughs, calling him a child, and says she will give him a quick and painless death. Pulling out all her blades at once, Esselin coldly apologizes, promising not to hold back anymore. She attacks Ryuto with a barrage of strikes. Lilith freezes, not knowing how to act. The boy meets her attack, but still does not manage to dodge. He thinks that Flash Step cannot be used consecutively, but this woman breaks the rule so easily, as if it is worthless. He guesses that the power comes from the sword. Esselin is surprised by his stubbornness and admits that her inexperience reveals the length of the fight. She feels the teleportation cooldown stronger than ever. She decides that she should have killed the girl first, but every time she tried, the boy got in the way. She is forced to admit that she is unable to deal with her. Esselin notices that Lilith is preparing a wind spell and wonders how much more time she will spend on the spell. She tries to calm down and suddenly feels uneasy. She thinks that she herself might be the real target. She notices a strange object by the wall, throws daggers at it, and sees them pierce the sensor. She asks if there was paralyzing potion there, and realizes the boy planned this from the start of the fight. Ryuto admits that the gas plan failed, but the action of the mandrake is extremely strong, so he hopes that over time it will work. Esselin appears from behind and attacks. Ryuto thinks that if he were in her place, he would try to finish the fight with one blow, which means he has a chance to win. He explains that he deliberately subjected himself to her rapid attacks so that she would decide that this was the limit of his reaction. He manages to turn around and strike, realizing that now he can anticipate her actions even after teleportation. The girl disappears from sight. Esselin thinks he is naive. After all, if she has a chance to finish everything with one blow, she will not use it to full strength. She unleashes the infinite barrage of blades, and Ryuto finds himself in the epicenter of a deadly rain of dozens of daggers. Suddenly, spirits burst out of the boy. Esselin is amazed that there are so many ghosts inside him. Spirits begin attacking Ryuto. One knocks him down and squeezes his throat. Esselin realizes he will die from his own shadows, but the boy shouts to wait. It's still too early. Meanwhile, Lilith stands by the demon sword, and Ryuto shouts at her not to touch it. But the girl replies that she cannot disobey because his life is in danger. Lilith touches the blade and declares that she will now carry out their original plan. She asks if it is really necessary to give half of one's life to fulfill a wish. Ryuto answers that it is a secret hidden within the Tower of Dawn itself, and besides the cursed sword, there is an even deeper secret. He admits that he had a backup plan for such a case, but there is no time to think. Even having obtained the sword, he does not know how to use that hidden knowledge. Lilith thinks that despite his words, she also has a wish for which she is ready to sacrifice half of her life. That wish is to be useful to him. She decides to give herself completely to the one who never retreats from danger. A third eye opens on her forehead. He explains that if it is for his sake, she will give half of her life without hesitation. Esselin realizes that this is the dragon's oath and wonders if it will turn her into a dragon. Ryuto stands up after the fight with the spirits and reproaches her for recklessly using the contract. Lilith whispers apologetically that she regrets it. The boy says that it has already happened and advises not to dwell on personal matters. He suggests acting. Lilith utters a spell and summons the golden dragon, using the skill Golden Roar. Esselin realizes that this is a large area attack, and even instant teleportation will not save her. She decides to endure it, certain that Lilith can use such a spell only once. Ryuto asks Lilith if she also decided that victory is already theirs. She replies that it is not over yet. He explains to Esselin that he can guess how much mana they have left, but Lilith carries an artifact, the Nocturne Ring. He asks if she understands the significance of this. Ryuto and Lilith together again launch the Golden Year, covering Esselin with radiance. Esselin lies defeated. Lilith asks Ryuto if she was useful. He says that without her he would have died. She asks him to stroke her head and he agrees. Ryuto strokes Lilith's head, and she confesses that she has an important question. She asks who she really is to him. Ryuto thinks for a moment and decides to answer. He takes her face in his palms and says that she is his. He reflects that he saw in her a reflection of his weakness and subconsciously used it. Now he understands that she showed true courage. She became for him the embodiment of hope to overcome fate, and he decides to prove to her that he can be someone she admires. Ryuto hugs Lilith, thanks her, and confesses that he did not lose thanks to her. He suggests becoming stronger together. Lilith agrees with tears of joy and hugs him back. Suddenly a boy appears wearing a large hat and mask, loudly greeting them. He mocks, repeating Ryuto's words to Lilith, and laughs, calling them a pair of charlatans. Lilith wonders who this weirdo is who appeared out of nowhere. Ryuto shields her with his body and asks if he is the secret that was hidden behind the cursed sword. The stranger says he came just in time and demands half of Lilith's life that the sword took. He adds that he will return it in exchange for half of Ryuto's own life. Ryuto shouts indignantly for him to stop talking nonsense and immediately give her life back. The boy reproachfully says that it is rude. He adds that he knows how to deal with the likes of them, and launches a magical attack, from which Ryuto's head flies to the side. Lilith freezes in horror, seeing the boy's body fall lifelessly. She throws herself to her knees beside him, begging him to wake up, and shouts for him to get up. The boy feigns confusion, saying that he accidentally killed the winner, and that it is not his style. He apologizes, suggesting not to dwell on past mistakes, and addresses Esselin, calling her a blonde. He reproaches her for allowing herself to be defeated so easily and orders her to stand up, or else he will smash her to dust. Suddenly Ryuto attacks him from behind, but he dodges. The boy demands that he fulfill his promise and restore Lilith's life. The stranger asks in surprise how he survived. Ryuto himself thought for a moment that he was already dead, and wonders who this boy is. The boy says he remembered. Probably he is a reincarnate, since this is not his first death. He explains that the embrace of death does not work on those who have died before. He instantly appears behind Ryuto and whispers that he wants to discuss something personal, calling him Iajima. The boy says that the answer he gave to the goddess about his wish impressed him. Instead of saving his life, he asked for a reboot to preserve all memories. He adds that, remaining a simple peasant, Ryuto sacrificed everything for this woman, making her fully rely on him. In response to Ryuto's question about who he is, the boy smiles and says that his name is known in many worlds. He bows and introduces himself. "Call me Lucifer, the one who opposes God." The boy admits that the embodiment of Lucifer resembles himself, and adds that his true form seems sealed in hell. He says that, having plenty of time, he designed a sword and entertained himself inside it. Ryuto assures that this is a lie, because any desire requires a proper price and fair payment. The young man says he read in ancient books about half of life as a sacrifice, although those texts were written over 500 years ago. He claims that he himself has already fulfilled desires and paid no price at all. Lucifer exclaims that this whole story from beginning to end was his invention. He explains that the short human life makes this game even funnier. He admits that he likes to observe the speed of people. After all, risking their lives, they are sometimes able to surpass their own limits. Therefore, he wants Ryuto to live life to the fullest and die a worthy death that will become a spectacle. Ryuto replies that on the condition of Lilith's return to her life, he is ready to show him journeys full of real trials. He wonders if this is exactly what he desired. Lucifer laughs, demanding entertainment, and says he will return someone's life for the spectacle. Ryuto adds that if he gets what he wants for free, he promises him double the entertainment. Lucifer says that things are not done that way, but agrees to wait a little. He blows on Ryuto, throwing him against the wall so that a huge crack appears. He laughs, wondering if a peasant can really show him the heights of spectacle. Ryuto lunges into attack, activates the skill Peasant's Fury, and swings his fist. But Lucifer stops the blow with a spell inches from his face. But Ryuto tears the seal and strikes so hard that Lucifer flies off. From the blow, the boy breaks his arm but tells Lilith not to come closer. He claims that the fight is not over yet. Lucifer is stuck in the wall, only his legs are sticking out. He admits that the last time he was hit so hard in the face was only during a quarrel with the goddess. After getting out, he exclaims that it was a wonderful show. He points to the full moon and says that he enjoyed the spectacle so much that he will give Lilith a full life for free. Lilith bursts into a glow. Lucifer asks Ryuto if his wish has already come true. He hints that maybe the boy has gained an ability that is not inferior to the one he dreamed of. He reveals that the Dragon King and other monarchs had an agreement to pass a share of their power to their princesses, and their souls are connected much longer than they think. Lucifer offers him the ability to transform into any creature he desires. Ryuto recalls an ancient legend about a giant wolf who devoured a god and inherited his power, becoming a legend. He asks if Lucifer can give him the same opportunity to devour gods and acquire their skills. Lucifer agrees and launches a skill transfer beam, jokingly suggesting to eat him right now. Rato thinks disappointedly that all this is too simple. He believed that such powers require complex rituals. Lucifer reminds him of the promised double fun. Rato warns him not to even think about spying on him, otherwise he will eat him himself. Lucifer recalls an ancient god of fertility who was devoured by his own descendant and wonders what awaits this boy. The next day, the heroine of the North, Cordelia, accepts the challenge. She enters the tower ruins in shock and reaches the sword without hindrance. The man applauds and congratulates her. Ryudo appoints him as a witness to the taking of the sword, but Cordelia rages and curses. The heroine of the North overcomes the trials of the Tower of Dawn without any problems. A year passes. At the Altena Academy of Magic, a boy asks Cordelia if something is bothering her. She replies that a crowd has gathered near the third polygon and wonders what is happening there. They stop on the balcony. The boy says that this is probably another entrance exam, and notes that most applicants got in only because of money. Cordelia reproaches Moses for being too harsh in his judgments. She watches the entrance, thinking that she herself is a hero, and Moses a sage, so they are occasionally invited to special classes at the academy. As a distinction of the Order of Knights, they receive a scholarship. She smiles, watching the children rejoice at their admission. Moisey adjusts his glasses and calls them a bunch of weaklings, wondering if they are not ashamed to live with such abilities. Moses declares that talentless people are a sin, and their only role is to become bait at the decisive moment. Cordelia does not listen to him, lost in thought, until she suddenly notices Ruto in the crowd. She jumps off the balcony, shouting that he is here. Moisey indignantly asks what she is doing, but Cordelia is already rushing forward, yelling that among the applicants is Ryuto McLean. Hearing this name, Moses angrily breaks the balcony railing, and Cordelia realizes that his contempt for Ruth has not changed since those times. A few weeks before the entrance exam at the Institute of Magic, Ruto asks Lilith if she is ready. She answers affirmatively, and the boy suggests setting off. They are stopped by a man, reproaching Rato for intending to leave without saying goodbye. The young man is surprised to see before him his uncle and the Dragon King. Beardman demands more respect, but Ryuto reminds him that he already got permission. Or did he forget? He replies that the guy is cheeky and orders not to forget to come back. Ryuto directly asks if the king deliberately did not tell him about the servant's brand. He replies that he did not worry because it would not have caused problems if they had stayed in the village. He explains that bracelets with the power of the dragon remove all diseases and curses, so the seal could not activate, but they do not erase the mark itself. Ryuto angrily asks why he did not say this. The king replies, "You did not ask. Knowledge is power, and only you are to blame." He adds that he wanted good, and thanks to ignorance they were able to figure it out on their own. He emphasizes that dragons are not humans, and human problems do not concern them, but promises Ryuto a worthy reception as the next king of dragons, extending his hand. Ruto does not pressure her, explaining that he still has matters to attend to. He has become strong to help the heroine, and his place is beside her. The king nods approvingly. He addresses Lilith, stating that she is weak, and the exile 4 years ago was not a mistake. He reminds her of her father's last words. To die like a human is a disgrace for a dragon, and he committed a grave sin, disgracing the family. The king kneels and adds that Ryuto proved himself a warrior by protecting her against all odds. He says that Lilith also proved her strength, and for him it is an honor to call her part of the Earth Dragon's family. The men bless them on their journey and wait for their return. The king looks at the clock, noting that they should have already arrived. The companion asks if he mentioned the Shenlong Gate. He replies that he did. The Shenlong Gate is an ancient barrier that guarded the village of dragons. Over time, the magic deteriorated, and only the gate itself remained. The king adds that he made the passage through the gates an additional trial. No one has passed yet, and he is sure that they will either not try or return in disgrace. He blows up the gates, joking that he will simply break them. The companion pales, fearing that it was only a fragment of the gate. The king declares that since he desired to surpass the hero, the world has changed, and the approach of the end is inevitable. He admits that he is curious how strong a peasant can become, and it is even scary to imagine it. At the academy, the administrator asks Ruto his name and class. The boy replies that he only possesses household magic. The administrator announces failure. Ruto is outraged because he hasn't even started the trial yet. The man says he has no chance and points to a target with a protective spell. He adds that he doubts the boy even has 5 silver coins for admission and orders him to go away. Ruto thinks that his other abilities are not recognized as true magic. Suddenly Lilith is called by a wealthy young man. He offers her to take the exam if she becomes his wife. He boldly says that the power of his lineage will ensure her success. The boy declares that there will be no second chance like this, and introduces himself as the nephew of the ruler of Facilia. Reito recalls where he saw him before. He boasts that he has everything: beauty, money, origin, and power. He strikes the target with magic and successfully passes the first stage. He proudly declares that this is what makes him exceptional. Reito asks the administrator if this is considered passing, and he confirms. Ruto easily cuts the target with a sword and asks if he passed. The young man shouts in shock. Since when are peasants capable of using the blade of the storm? The boy grabs Ruto by the collar, and he asks if this is what is being talked about, or what he just did. Ruto explains that he was only slicing magic in the air with a hand movement. The young man shouts in anger, asking if he really thinks anyone can believe that. He falls to the floor, foam coming from his mouth. The servants panic, shouting about another seizure and urgently demanding to bring the storage. The administrator announces that he passed the test, but must complete the rest as well. The judge adds that now they will check how well he completed the task, hit the target. A specially appointed mage begins to examine the target that Ruto cut in half. The second trial is measuring the mana level with an absorbing sphere. Lilith asks why they can't just compare their cards. Ryuto replies that the scientists want absolute accuracy and assume that someone might not have cards. The rich man confidently says that the point is in defining potential, not just numbers. He asks Lilith to see how even the best students cannot create a flame as bright as his. He apologizes for the past misunderstanding. Lilith places her palm on the sphere, and it flares up with such a bright fire that the girl has to close her eyes. The boy falls to the floor, crying out in pain in his eyes. The knights demand to cover the sphere and bring the repository. The teachers whisper that its power can rival the hero, but Lilith only glances back maliciously. Ryuto decides that it is already obvious. Surpassing Lilith is impossible. He thinks, if her radiance is like that, then his own power can shatter everything. The boy wants to suppress this senjutsu. He places his hand on the sphere, and all the spheres around explode simultaneously. The crowd panics, rushing to extinguish the fire and understand what happened. Lilith says satisfiedly that he did well. She insists that she does not know what happened last time, but there is nothing Ruto could not do perfectly. The boy replies that he hopes others think the same. Ryuto recalls how Cordelia once had problems maintaining strength, and decides that he still lacks skill. Someone from the crowd shouts that he exposed him, pointing at Ryuto. He accuses him of intending to sabotage the exam. The young man shouts that he will tell everyone about his fraud, and demands that he be expelled. However, the examiner calmly announces that Ruto has passed the test. The boy, shocked, shouts whether he even heard his words. But the examiner explains that the task was to ignite the sphere, and he ignited not only his own but also others, so the result is credited. The judge announces that the last stage remains, sparring. He asks Ruto if he wants to face him. The boy angrily exclaims, "How dare he?" but suddenly falls silent when Lilith feigns genuine interest and says she is looking forward to the fight. He joyfully declares that punishing the insolent is the duty of the elite, and Ruto should be grateful that he will carry out the punishment. Lilith ironically calls this amazing. After the fight, the defeated opponent lies unconscious on the ground. The knights shout that a recovery sphere is needed. Ruto thinks that fortunately, he restrained himself and had enough equipment. Cordelia exclaims that she finally found him. She calmly asks Ruto where he has been all this time. Ruto smiles and says that she has become even more beautiful. But Cordelia shouts that he must not dare to deceive her like that and raises her hand to strike him. She raises her hand, but Lilith intercepts her palm and coldly asks what she is planning. Cordelia orders her not to interfere because she has business with Ruto, and wonders how the girl managed to stop her blow. Lilith replies that she should leave because they have nothing to talk about. Cordelia insists that it is not her business. The students eagerly discuss that Miss Cordelia is preparing for a duel. They excitedly whisper that her opponent will be the applicant who showed amazing strength today. The girl eavesdrops on their conversation and hears that the duel will take place on the 5th training ground. Everyone rushes to not miss the spectacle. Lilith and Cordelia take battle positions. Lilith casts a spell, but Cordelia easily deflects it with her sword. The men in the crowd shout, asking if they forgot that this is only sparring, not a real battle, and that this way they will destroy half the square. The examiner enthusiastically suggests watching a little longer, as watching the student's growth is wonderful. The administrator suspects that he has completely lost his mind. The man thinks that if Lilith can maintain flight for so long and attack at the same time, then her strength is at B-class level. Ruto realizes that Cordelia's holy sword protects her from dangerous attacks and wonders why Lilith continues to cast spells. The boy begins to suspect her true intention. Cordelia deflects another attack and shouts to Lilith that it is useless to use magic against her. She calls her to come down and fight like a true warrior. Lilith agrees that this holy sword is truly incredible and calls it her sword. Cordelia does not understand what she meant by her. Lilith picks up the arrows and suggests something more tangible. She tosses them into the air, and Ruto realizes with horror what she is about to do. Cordelia looks on, not understanding what is happening. Lilith declares that now her chances of victory are 0. The arrows sharply change direction and fly toward her. The arrows strike the ground near Cordelia and cause an explosion. She does not have time to recover before new arrows are already chasing her. She deflects them with her sword, but they do not fall and attack again. Cordelia is forced to deflect every strike without rest. She realizes that the force of the blows is too great, and she cannot completely disperse them. Her hand goes numb, so she suddenly rushes to flee. Lilith is surprised, thinking that she decided to run away. Lilith decides that it is not a problem. She can just speed up the arrows. But Cordelia suddenly stops, turns around and jumps. Cordelia flies straight at Lilith, who is hovering in the sky. Lilith is amazed that she managed to cover the distance without any preparation. Arrows change course, but Lilith understands that they will not hit in time. Cordelia is already swinging at her. Lilith wants to dodge, but Cordelia skillfully uses the arrows themselves as support, pushing off them and attacking again. Lilith becomes confused, realizing that she panicked, and this destroyed her control over magic. Cordelia misses, and both fall down. Lilith lands on top with a ready spell and proclaims her victory. But she feels something is wrong. Ruto strictly warns Lilith that it is time to stop. Frightened, the girl raises her hands up, showing that she surrenders. She notices how the huge crowd bursts into applause. Ruto says that everything ended well. Lilith pulls the hood over her face, embarrassed by the attention. Cordelia stands up and admits that the rival is truly strong. She adds that she yielded to her only so that the hero would not be disgraced by defeat. She insists that this was to be expected from Ruto's comrade. Lilith claims that the victory belongs to her because she was the one who stopped the attack in the air. Cordelia extends her hand and offers to restore their friendship. Lilith is already reaching out to shake her hand when Cordelia notices the seal. She asks in amazement what it is. Lilith understands that it is about a mark. She recalls how she decided to leave this sign as a memory of the beginning of her travels with Ruto, although the power of the seal has long faded. She says that Ruto is her dear mentor, and therefore they are connected. Cordelia is shocked by these words. Ruto calls out to Cordelia, but she runs away. Lilith rejoices, calling it her victorious pose. Ruto asks in surprise what she is doing. A week has passed since the exams. Moses asks Cordelia if she is okay. She asserts that she is. He guesses that she is sleep-deprived and urges her to take care of her health, as her fate is to save people. She asks if today is the first day of the quarter month. Moses confirms and asks what it is about. Cordelia replies that it does not matter. They say goodbye and part ways. Moses realizes that Root McLean is still alive. 10 years ago, someone asked a little boy if he was Root. The little boy with glasses introduced himself as Moses, said he recently moved, and suggested they be friends since they are the same age. He extended his hand, but Roit walked past. Moses sighed, regretting that he was not accepted then. Now he has even more reason to wipe him out. He wonders how a peasant boy who once could not even defeat a goblin is still alive. He recalls the level that he showed on the exam, and decides that Ruto has been reborn. He is convinced that this opens countless possibilities he could not even imagine. In the forest, Moses meets Roit. Ruto in academic attire greets Cordelia. She turns away and wants to leave, but he asks her to wait. He reminds her that today is the first day of the 4th month and offers her a bouquet. He explains that these flowers are usually white or purple, but here they bloomed red, and adds that they suit her wonderfully. Cordelia is glad that he still remembers their past. Ruto notes that he is happy to see that she still wears that hairpin. She replies that she's strengthened her with magic, because without it she would have broken long ago. Then she asks about Lilith. Ruto notes that the conversation will be long. They sit on the bench and he begins to tell a story. Cordelia listens attentively, nodding as if confirming his words. Ruto mentions the mark, explaining that it is just a tattoo, since the seal was destroyed long ago. Cordelia thinks with relief that their relationship still does not have such meaning. Suddenly her stomach growls loudly. Ruto laughs and asks if she is hungry. She shouts that it is his fault and orders him to take responsibility and treat her. He jokingly says she can eat for free, then agrees. They walk together, and Cordelia says he should give a bouquet to Lilith too. Ruto asks why, since she is not like them. Cordelia smiles, saying Lilith will be happy anyway. Meanwhile, the teacher shouts that they are welcomed in hell. He calls their class a bunch of losers who barely passed the entrance. He announces that from now on the use of magic, items, and special skills is forbidden. He orders to perform the test using only their own muscles, and to surprise him. Then he shouts to pack up and march to the old school building in the forest. Ruto, together with 2 boys, carries out the order. The instructor yells for them to move their legs faster. Raijuto thinks that the vellum forest, known as the Misty, was once a plain, but after one event the entire area became overgrown with trees. He recalls that the old school building has long been swallowed by this forest. He understands that their class of 45 people is divided into 9 groups, 5 in each. One boy asks if Ruto is also a peasant, like him. He says it is not a problem, and introduces himself as Arthur Malcolm. Ruto shakes his hand in greeting and asks about the others. Arthur replies that one of them is named Short, but he is not particularly eager to communicate with people like them. Raijuto thinks that even in the worst class, where impoverished nobles and former aristocrats ended up, peasants remain outside the people. He reflects that the word peasant has 3 meanings. The first, people not tied to a place and associated with organizations outside cities. The second, those who have no abilities. That is, deprived of a natural inclination to the profession of a warrior, they can only be townsfolk or peasants. Ruto thinks that townsfolk can find themselves in crafts, or compensate for lack of strength by forced labor, while peasants survive only by their own hard work. He believes that although peasants are needed for construction and growing food, in other respects they are perceived as homeless dogs unwanted by anyone. Suddenly someone jumps in front of Ruto, attracting attention. He sees a little girl cheerfully waving her hand. She happily introduces herself as Koharu Sagusa and says she belongs to his group. Raijuto assumes she is from Japan, probably an Eastern priestess. Arthur wonders if she is a foreign student. He is surprised that she speaks their language so well. She smiles and says she does not know it at all. Ruto is surprised by the appearance of a foreign female student in the worst class, but someone roughly grabs Koharu by the collar, accusing her of flirting with him. Ruto angrily sees Lilith, grabs her by the face and asks how she ended up here. She coquettishly says that his love is dangerous. He reminds her that he asked her to watch over Cordelia since she became a special student. Lilith replies that everything is under control. She solemnly declares that she will protect Ruto, explaining that as a special student she has the right to enter any class. Raijuto scolds her sternly, but she insists that this is also a manifestation of his love. Their comrades ask them to avoid quarrels. Short asks Arthur if these are their new partners. He sighs that it would be better if not. 2 hours have passed. Ruto reviews the schedule and considers it too tight. Arthur exclaims that they are already like prisoners. Short grumbles that he wanted to study magic. In the class, they begin to discuss how the hero gained his mastery through strengthening the body. They say it is training that enhances physical and mental powers. Short wonders if the program was made according to the new fashion. Ruto thinks that this is a problem because his absurd characteristics are only the result of enhancements that will disappear during training. He decides to try to make the shackles ineffective. He calms down, thinking that with them he will be able to reshape his body and mind. The next morning at 6 on the training field, Koharu stands in surprise. Raijuto asks why she is alone. He wonders where Lilith is since they are neighbors. Koharu replies that she complained of feeling unwell due to the large number of people. Raijuto scolds her, suspecting that she really hates group activities. Meanwhile, Lilith lies in bed thinking that the crowd is disgusting to her. She takes Ruto's clothes and feels that his scent calms her. Koharu admits that this looks strange. She adds that although a sinister forest stretches beyond the walls, no plants or monsters are seen penetrating here. Raijuto explains that this place was once the last line of defense during a catastrophe, so it is not surprising that a protective barrier has been preserved here. He admits that now there is only dense forest around, and this area can only serve as an observation post, where the worst class is used as guards. Raijuto thinks that a catastrophe is a phenomenon that forces monsters to quickly become evil dragons or demon lords, and also spawns unique creatures. He believes that a true catastrophe is something unspeakable, something that leaves almost no witnesses, although they are all similar in their horror. Ruto recalls that every catastrophe suddenly transforms an entire generation of some monster race, raising their threat level many times over. He remembers how during past catastrophes simple goblin soldiers became generals and kings became emperors, and even that was not the end of their evolution. Ruto recalls Ultima, creatures that were the size of ordinary goblins, but had the strength comparable to evil gods, and their armies destroyed entire states. He believes that humanity in this world is slowly disappearing, and catastrophes only accelerate its demise. Heroes are the only ones capable of resisting this, but he thinks he does not care about humanity. He only wants to protect Cordelia, Lilith, his village, the old man, and the teacher. Koharu addresses Raijuto, clarifying that the run is about to start. She admits that she did not tell her comrades an important thing. She admits that she is not confident in her own endurance and may not hold out. Ruto and his partners support her, but in the end, he himself takes Koharu on his back and carries her further. On the second day at 7:30, the students eat their meager breakfast rations in the dining hall. Koharu offers her portion to Arthur, but he refuses. Ryotal comes in with plates and says that they are already starving, offering to try his dish. Koharu is surprised because it is oatmeal. Ryuto explains that he grew the grain himself in a corner of the schoolyard. Koharu asks if he used forbidden powers, since everything grew too quickly. The partners refuse to eat the porridge, and Ruto gets angry. He thinks that only combat and defensive techniques were forbidden, and the rules were clearly written. Lilith scolds him, and Koharu asks if she did something wrong. Koharu addresses him as Ryuto-san. The boy says that just Ryuto is fine. The girl is grateful but cannot accept such closeness. Ryotal hands her a plate, ordering her to eat and not worry, because only after eating will strength appear. He asks what endurance can there be if she is hungry. Koharu tastes the porridge and says that it warms her. Ryuto replies that it is all thanks to the ingredients and nutrition. At 8:30 they are in a special lesson. The teacher shouts that they are here because of their failure and orders them to climb the rope. If at least one reaches the end, he will let everyone go. Arthur asks if the failure will affect their punishment. The teacher says no, but they will lose half of their dinner anyway. Arthur rolls up his sleeves, decides to take a risk, and starts climbing. But eventually he falls down. He falls from a great height, but the teacher softens the fall with magic. Then he coldly asks who is next. Short sighs that if even Arthur, the strongest among them, failed, then they and the girls all the more so. He adds that only one option remains, and then someone raises their hand. Raito asks for permission to try and resolutely begins climbing up the rope, ascending higher and higher. He thinks that in a world where magic is commonplace, climbing a rope seems almost like child's play. But he realizes that even an athlete without magic cannot climb to such a height. It requires willpower and unwavering desire. Everyone looks at him in surprise. Ruto continues the ascent and understands that usually such punishments only break students and deprive them of faith in their own strength. He suspects that the purpose of this trial is to get him expelled from the academy. Meanwhile, the boy who suffered serious injuries and now needs expensive treatment maliciously thinks that the plan is perfect. He just needs to wait for Ruto's return to humiliate him in front of Lilith and the other girl. He laughs, enjoying his own invention, while the nurse calls the doctor. Ruto believes that it is because of him that his comrades are drawn into this farcical situation. He is almost at the end. Koharu exclaims that it is incredible, only a little left. Suddenly he feels the effect of a debuff and falls down. Koharu shouts that he is falling, and Lilith irritably asks her to be quiet. Ruto grabs the rope and thinks that even without magical enhancements, his body is tempered by years of training since the times when he was level 1. And this strength should not be underestimated. He reaches the very ceiling and touches it, after which he falls down, but the instructor manages to catch him with magic. Ruto thanks for the rescue. The man wanted to ask something but changed his mind and only said not to worry. Arthur is upset that he failed, but Ruto succeeded. Lilith hugs him while Short is thinking about something. All this time, Moses watches Ruto through a special spell, noting that he is truly an interesting creature. The next day at 11:30 after lunch, Ruto enters the room and sees a gloomy Arthur. Raijuto realizes that Arthur has been avoiding him since then, constantly challenges him to fights during training, and cannot hold back. He wonders if he is to blame for something, but Short notes that he is talking to himself. Short tells that Arthur's father was once a captain in the Knight Order. He was the only nobleman who supported the participation of common peasants in fencing tournaments, but after losing to one of them, he lost his position, even though the peasant refused the reward. Short adds that the captain later fell and lost respect, so Arthur hated him, although he used to adore him. He summarizes that one peasant ruined the fate of a respected nobleman, further strengthening prejudice against commoners, and asks if a peasant should know his place. On the third day, the instructor announces a new trial. They have to take backpacks and run 100 kilometers around the Lost Forest. Those who do not show up tomorrow will be expelled. He warns that this is not a team task and relying on comrades is pointless, and there is no need to worry about weaklings because replacements will always be found. Ruto realizes that here is the true goal. He reflects that running such a distance in a day is almost impossible, although for him and Lilith it is not a problem. However, others see only a burden in him and Koharu. Ruto recalls how he was asked if he knows his place, and understands that he does, since he was able to stand next to Cordelia without causing her trouble. He looks at Koharu and wonders why they are so eager to get rid of the foreign student. He assumes it is a form of bullying. Ryuto bandages Koharu's injured leg and thinks that the class silently chose him to be responsible for her. He adds some healing herbs that should help. He remembers asking Lilith to walk ahead so as not to scare Koharu with his jealousy. Lilith sarcastically states that a loving wife must forgive her husband's betrayals but will always remember this meanness. Koharu sadly admits that she has always been a mistake and apologizes to Ruto, adding that she even ruined his relationship with Lilith. Ruto quotes a poem, and Koharu asks in surprise where he knows it from. The boy explains that the picturesque nature of her land is a wonderful example of the culture of her homeland. He adds that her name means strength and light, so she should shine brighter. He confesses that when he is near her, he remembers Japan. Suddenly, Ruto is overwhelmed by memories of a past life. He realizes that he will never be able to forget them. Koharu calls him, wanted to say something, but changed her mind and asked him to ignore it. She thought that for a moment Ryuto became frightening. He replies that the matter is quite different. He asks what a person worthy of Class A is doing in the worst class. Koharu is confused by his bluntness. Ryuto explains that the Sayagusa family has long been famous for the skill of spirit bearers, and asks if she really thought that no one had heard of their clan. He adds that as the eldest daughter, she undoubtedly possesses even greater power. He emphasizes that a unique hereditary gift, a divine indwelling, allows a person to become a bearer of ancient gods or spirits and elevates their characteristics to incredible heights. Stunned, Koharu asks where he knows this from. Ryuto replies that he himself has special abilities, so he senses those similar to him. Koharu is amazed because she is encountering this for the first time. Ryuto recalls books from the Dragon Emperor's library, but decides not to go into details, thinking it better to give her the chance to discover it herself. He says he can lift the curses placed on her. Koharu asks where he knows all this from. Ryuto admits that he does not know everything. For example, he knows nothing about the Eastern Zone. Ryuto asks why such an important figure for the East ended up in the West. Meanwhile, the elder proclaims that the seal of Orochi-sama is safe again for another 300 years, and with this knowledge, he can finally rest in peace. The girl asks if any terrible monsters or evil spirits have passed by. Another replies that even if they appeared, she is sure Koharu would handle them, so everything is fine. But in reality, the evil spirits slaughtered everyone, and Koharu only watched this massacre with horror and despair. She tells Ruto that this is exactly how her village perished. He is stunned into silence, unable to find words. He suggests that the squad was led by a general of the highest rank, and calls it a true catastrophe. The boy considers this impossible since such a disaster had not been mentioned for centuries, but these lands became its epicenter. Ryuto asks if she fled from the battle with that monster king because of the curse. Koharu shows the seal and explains that it blocks her divine possession, which is why she couldn't fight back then. She admits that she ran away, leaving the other villagers behind, and calls herself worthless because she cannot use the gift of her lineage. She adds that after the village's destruction, she was sheltered by a hero from the east. She visited many exorcists, but no one helped, so she headed west, hoping for magic. Ryuto thinks it looks like the search was in vain. He understands that the curse is made by Eastern magic, although it disguises itself as Western or Southern, and only one person is capable of creating such a thing. He suspects that it is the work of the Eastern hero himself. He becomes scared at the thought that he aims to destroy the Sagusa clan, but decides not to delve into it for now. Koharu says that her power does not belong to her personally, but is granted by ancestors and gods. As the eldest daughter, she is obliged to preserve and pass it on. She wants to continue, and say that for the memory of her village she must do something. But Ryuto places his hand beside hers, urging her to be silent. Suddenly his hand turns into a monster's paw, and Koharu is frightened. He reassures her, saying he will now remove the curse. Ryuto pulls the curse from her body. His hand begins to regain human form, and Koharu looks on in surprise. He feels heaviness and pain, explaining that this hand is the last one capable of devouring everything. He asks her to try her ability again, and she notices that the seal on her stomach is gone. Realizing what happened, the girl bursts into tears of happiness. She sincerely thanks Ryuto. Suddenly, a monster attacks them. She and Koharu manage to dodge. Ryuto identifies it as an ogre general, but quickly realizes before them is an Eastern Oni, who was not supposed to be in the West at all. Ryuto tries to activate the last resort skill, but fails and decides that he won't be able to use it anymore today. They dodge the monster's attacks when Ryuto suddenly senses enemies approaching from behind. Ryuto realizes he is trapped. They are surrounded. He throws Koharu and takes all the attacks upon himself. The huge monster grabs Reito by the leg. The boy is stunned that this monster is still alive and acknowledges its stubbornness. The big guy swings his arm to throw him to the ground. Ryuto flies down and Koharu rushes to him, but her path is blocked by a spirit. She recalls the horror of the destroyed village and freezes in fear. Reito, noticing this, thinks she is not moving because of an injury. Ruto decides there is no other choice. At that moment, a boy appears in the monster's paw, asking what happened and noting that the smell is so pleasant. He addresses the monster, saying they have waited so long for this journey, so why not enjoy it to the fullest? Soon Ryuto stands among a mountain of monster and evil spirit corpses. His hands are still recovering after the battle. Koharu worries, asking if he is okay. Ruto clarifies if she is able to walk. Hearing an affirmative answer, he nods and suggests moving on. The Dragon King notes that someone dared to combine the God Eater with a skill above BL. Ruto replies that the Insatiable tried to swallow him, so he just ate it back. The man is amazed, as combining two such powers and surviving is almost impossible. He explains that the devouring everything effect will not disappear anywhere. Even sealed, the devourer of gods will absorb insatiability and mutual fusion will generate explosive energy. Reito admits that he feels as if the peasant's rage in him is constantly active, and the mana is always on the verge of explosion, but then disappears again. He himself does not know where it goes. The king suggests that the Dragon King's ring on his hand is trying to unite these forces into one. He adds that part of the body's excess energy may be spent on maintaining Ruto himself. Ryuto agrees that he is still getting stronger. He asks to explain how this world is arranged, and the king's words frighten him. The man asks if he understands everything and explains. It is not as simple as defeating the demon lord, or even the demon god. He warns Ruto that he will not be able to save the hero or change the world. Ruto clarifies whether it means that it is unattainable for him now. He thanks him for knocking out his excessive pride. Still, he feels this is not enough. The man hints that he should remember his previous words. The king reveals that the reincarnated Moses poses a greater danger than it seems, and also knows how the world is arranged. He notes that sages are capable of turning wishes into reality. Ryuto replies that he is calm. If they want to use the current hymn, he will be able to benefit from it. He declares that it is the peasant who will control the sage. The next morning at 6, the instructor says that Sagusa and Macklin failed and will be expelled from the academy. Lilith angrily asks if he is in his right mind. She claims that Ryuto will become a great hero and he is going to expel him. The man waves it off, calling it a bedtime story, and orders not to be disturbed. Suddenly, someone shouts for everyone to look at the gates. Ruto enters the camp with 2 backpacks on his shoulders and Koharu on his back. He proudly announces that Macklin and Sagusa have completed the mission. Short stops them and asks why he is without magical shackles. He clarifies whether this does not lead to automatic disqualification. Ryuto asks to first send Koharu to the infirmary because she has fainted. He adds that he must make a report first and foremost. The students are curious if there really was an ogre there. Ryuto says that his magical chains broke during the Oni attack, but he was lucky to escape. And miraculously everyone believed it. At 1 in the afternoon, the students were ordered to leave the old school building and move to the new one. Everyone was actively discussing the reasons for the move, and doubting whether it was really the right decision. Ryuto believes that the barrier is powerless against the Eastern Oni, since the North and West use common magic, while the South and East have their own sources. So the decision is quite logical. But he is worried about the too calm reaction of the teachers. He assumes that they anticipated the threat, and therefore wanted to exclude Koharu, but decides that he is mistaken. He reflects on Cordelia. He managed to gather some data about the enemy. The army is moving from the northeast, and Cordelia is in the western part of the fortress. He hopes that she will manage to escape. Ruto hesitates whether he should go to help, but in the end, he decides that Cordelia is strong enough to overcome a monster of king level and leaves it to her. Lilith asks him what he plans to do. Ruto is first surprised, then smiles with firm determination. He claims that he wants to lead them to Cordelia and her squad. After all, the new building is surrounded by demons, and the main forces of the academy are already in the fortress. Lilith clarifies how he plans to change their route if the direction is different. Ryuto replies that he will do it thanks to a small performance. Ruto asks Arthur to sew his leg. Then he lies down in the carriage, pretending to be weak. In fact, it would be easier for him to rest, but he hoped to get a shoulder for support. He telepathically asks Lilith if she hears him. The girl answers yes. Ryuto reports that the preparation is complete. Lilith raises the class and says she has to look at the new school from here. The instructor asks in surprise what she is babbling about. Lilith rises high into the sky on the wings of flight. The man is amazed at how fast her magic is, since she reached such a height instantly. From above, Lilith surveys the entire area and landing says that things are bad. She explains that the new building is already surrounded by ogres. The barrier, although holding, does not let them inside. Lilith adds a fiction that a huge horde is approaching from behind. She does not know if they are heading to the new school or just chasing them, but advises to change the route. She also reports that she saw a fortress nearby where they also repelled an ogre attack. There were people in academic uniforms there, and although it will be necessary to make a detour, it is a worthwhile option. The instructor reminds that they have wagons with them, which cannot be left in the middle of the forest. Lilith confidently says to rely on her, as she will pave the way.